Shadows Literary License Podcast episodes. Ben Stokes here, exploring all things Collinsport, Maine, and following the likes of the Collins family, and the friends and foes, with your co-hosts, Tom Diamond, Jez Seafoots, Mickey Ray, and Keith Chalgo, Collins family, story about blood relations, literally.
Hello, welcome to Literary License Podcast, and we're discussing Dark Shadows episodes, October 1969 to November 1969, which includes episodes 853 to 855. I'm sure I screwed that up. We're doing the episodes from October 1969 to November 1969. So
it's 856 to 893.
893.
And that will get me in the subway with $2.75.
We have since slept, people.
I was getting a bit confused by these episodes. So, before we get started, I want to let everyone know that we've been nominated for a Rondo Award for 2 awards.
Yay!
For Best Podcast and for Best Interview with the Don Briscoe Tribute.
You left one out, Tom.
I left one out?
He did.
So, I did. We've been left. Well, we're nominated.
You
for
left
2.
one out. Nominated for the Don Briscoe. Got nominated for Best Podcast, and Tom.
And I have nominated you, Keith. I went through the back door on this one for Best Horror Host of 2021.
Because we love you so much, even though you insult me all the time.
And also because you hired me. And of course, I'm waiting for the latest paycheck. Not, but
keep waiting for that, baby doll.
Though if you live long enough, anything's possible. But the bottom line is that, and I don't want to swell Keith's head too much.
Don't worry about it. It's always that blown up.
Bottom line is the creator and as the host of not only the Dark Shadows podcast, but all the other stuff that's going on, it's a tremendous job.
Undertaking. And, he deserves to be recognized. I recognize him every day, but that doesn't score any points with him. He still insults me.
He has to keep you in line.
I know. You know him. But we can agree to disagree. I still love everybody.
Of course. But the bottom line is that he has, it's a tremendous following. And I understand that subscribers, there are over 3 million subscribers worldwide. I don't know, what's the latest figure, Keith?
3.5 million now.
Wow.
And that is an unbelievable achievement, and I personally believe, and I personally professionally believe that should be recognized.
Me too.
So I slipped that in, and I would like to encourage, and I also want to thank you guys for the Briscoe tribute. It was an
excellent tribute. It made me cry. I don't know if it was just the Amy Grant music really got to me at the end of that. Everybody needs to listen to the Don Briscoe tribute. It was excellent. All of our Dark Shadows people out there. And if you're not, please give it a listen. It's really good.
Absolutely. And that would be under number 27, which would be special recognition. The Amy Grant thing, of course, was Keith's edition, and that just goes to show you
that was just really sad, though.
The marvelous teamwork, but it's a tragic story.
No, we got his family, his friends, his girlfriend, or his fiance came on.
It was his ex-girlfriend. And
it was just such a sad. It was just sad, and he was so beloved. I mean, he's one of my favorites on all of these shows. I just really loved him.
And it helped that he was extremely good looking as well.
He did, yeah. There's eye candy. You don't get too much eye candy on Dark Shadow, so let me have my, little thing here.
Yeah, he had enough of those you know, those pictures without his shirt. Competed with David Selby.
He was just he just had these cheeks. I don't know. He was cute. He was like the boy next door. He just seemed so sweet, you know.
And when he was a vampire, he was.
I just
so
got to
hot,
think.
right,
I have more of a thing for him as a werewolf. I don't know.
Yeah, I talked to Alex Stevens because he was the werewolf.
I know. Alex, poor Alex.
But
he did a good job too.
But the bottom line is, we're very, very happy. I mean, I'm thrilled that was. That's in the process of write-in votes, and
if he wins, there will be no living with him.
That's I'll try to fit you in somehow.
Just kidding with you.
I'll open my drawer. Yeah,
I think it was an excellent interview. I like I said.
Thank you, Vicky.
Excellent interview.
Thank you, and thanks for going along with it. I think one of the things with the teamwork here is that we're able to have creative ideas, and I think Keith did that from the start. We're just just discuss it with him, and he says, "Yeah, I like it. Go with it." And I think that's there's a lot of democratic stuff here. There's no dictatorial, and there's no laissez-faire either. Everybody works very, very hard. Especially with the Dark Shadows thing, where we are doing 40 to 43 episodes of the clip now. And that's twice the work that we did before. So it's all the brainchild of Dr. Chago over there. And so I'll shut my mouth now, and because I think I've swelled his head off long enough.
He's got that Cheshire smile, like Cheshire Cat smile right now. I know that smile.
I think he's blushing.
Kind of looks like the Grinch.
Are you blushing a little bit there? Is your zygomatic arch filling up with blood?
I don't have any empathy, and I have no feelings. So as we go further, what we'll do is we'll find out who's with us today. We got special guest Barbara Venkataram.
One of our favorite authors.
Barbara Venkataram.
Oh, wait, do it again. I didn't hear it. Say it again.
Barbara Venkataram. I mess it up every single time.
I look forward to it.
Say your name again, Barbara.
Venkataraman.
Think ramen noodles.
Right. I just can't get my little Caucasian mouth around that word.
Say that 3 times fast.
It's not easy.
If your name's not Smith, Jones, or Jackson, I've massacred every single one.
I know.
We have a person on our book, this Leandro Ghazi, and it's taken me about 1.5 years to get Ghazi right.
That's easy though.
Yeah, I don't know. My brain sees words in a different way, sort of thing, unfortunately. So Barbara, what have you been up to since last time we spoke to you?
Well, I'm writing a book of short stories in the O. Henry style where there's a twist.
Cool.
Some of them are, I guess they could be qualified as a little bit horrible in the horror genre, and some just for fun. And I'm with a publisher now, Next Chapter, and they're going really wide. They're about to sign a contract with China and Dubai, so that's pretty exciting. I don't know how much they like cozy mysteries and things like that, but we'll find out.
I've read a couple of books by them. They've sent me books to review, and I reviewed a couple of books from that company, so they're good. There's some good authors that you're in company with there.
Yeah, there's 200 authors, I think, or maybe 250 now. But
that's great.
They're actually based in Japan, so it says if you ever need to sue us, you have to do it in Japan. I go, I don't think I'll be suing
you to sue us.
But it's been great. So just that's a fun thing to do.
Well, you never know where your audience is coming from.
This is true.
We're like number one in Indonesia and places like that.
Or Paraguay.
Paraguay, Central America, South America.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what Singapore kept coming up on my phone the other day. I go, lots of Singapore.
That's so interesting, right?
It is. The demographic, yeah.
You never know when you're going to connect with people.
No, you don't.
And we have a huge fan base in the Middle East because we did a song. Because one of our closing credits used for Dark Shadows last
Didn't you get our song banned or some stuff like that?
The song got banned in the Middle East because I used "Put Your Hand in the Hand of the Man Who Stills the Water."
Yeah.
So, and it got banned there. So I had a bunch of people Kuwait asking me where they could get
download
it
the music.
YouTube getting it off somewhere else, and they were getting it from somewhere else. And so the numbers instead of YouTube were going up like this. In the Middle East, were going up somewhere else in another platform. So it's quite funny when things.
For people who don't know, if you have a VPN and you log in under that country, you can get their stuff. Just so you know.
So, but yeah, I'll be looking forward to the O. Henry book. Let us know when that's coming out and post it at a time. And
yeah, cool. I'll
hit you up for a review.
Oh yeah, I'm an O. Henry fan. You know, get the Magi. So you can't beat that.
That's a cool. That is cool because I like O. Henry.
I'll hit you all up for a review. How's that?
Yeah,
will do.
All right, yay.
And of course, we have Tom Diamond with us. So what have you been up to, Tom, since last time we spoke to you?
Well, watching a lot of old TV. I took a little bit of a break from school, and now I'm back. And Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Is that good? Everybody keeps talking about it. I've not started watching it yet.
Yep, love it. It's in its 4th season now, and it is now streaming every week on Amazon Prime, and it's really cool. And of course, waiting for Outlanders. It's coming out in a couple of weeks.
Is it?
Outlanders, March 6th.
I got to get my 2-month subscription or whatever, 3-month subscription to Stars so I can watch it and cancel it.
Absolutely. And Lost in Space, I have to catch up with the last season of Lost in Space.
Yeah, I still got to catch up with that one too.
And Star Trek Discovery, I've watched the first couple episodes of the 4th season. Star Trek is really, really running wild. And I believe in May, Strange New Worlds is going to start, and that's the exploits of Christopher Pike. And
really?
Yes.
I didn't hear about that.
Yep, May 5th, I believe. And the young Spock. And they've even got characters playing Uhura and someone else. I'm not sure whether it's... Oh, Dr. Mabenga. Dr. Mabenga's on there. Dr. Mabenga was the 3rd season doctor when McCoy had to take a rest in the original series.
And this all kind of spun off from from that one pilot.
It kind of, that was part of it, and the other one was in Discovery. In the 2nd season, they brought Christopher Pike on. They brought the actress Anson Mount, I believe, and they brought him on in the 2nd season of Discovery, and along with the Spock character, and people went nuts when they saw that because Spock is the half brother of the female commander, and I'm blanking out on her name. Michael, something like that. But anyway, there's other good stuff. The only thing is now they're all raising the prices on the platforms. And I mean, what is it? Amazon Prime's going up.
What?
Netflix is going up.
What?
Yep.
I didn't see any of that.
Then you're lucky because Netflix.
Why is Prime going up? I mean, how much money do they need?
Everything's going up by $1 or $2 or
$2 or something like that. Yeah. Why? Why? Because because we like you.
I like the service, but
it is something to be dealt with. But so that's the one negative. But there's a lot of positive stuff coming on there, and I just started my PhD coursework again, and I am got some irons in the fire. So and really wigged out over the Rondo possibility. They're having their ceremony in person this year.
Yeah.
If we get lucky in Lexington, Kentucky, and I believe that's.
If we get lucky, I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'm going to go down there. Sharon and I are going to go down there in June, I believe mid-June. So it'll be a lot of fun. So that's what's happening with me, and now I'll shut my mouth and back to you, Keith.
And what about yourself, Vicki Ray? What are you getting up to?
Well, soccer BMX time again. Other than that, I find myself watching. Well, I watched this thing about Boris Karloff. I think I need to watch the last 20 minutes of it. It's called The Man Behind the Monster.
Yeah, the documentary on Shudder, right?
Yeah, it's really good. And there's a lot of stuff that I just did not know about Boris Karloff. What a life. I mean, just wow.
Oh, yeah.
And I got so interested in the stuff I found out about, like the Frankenstein monster and the Mummy and all this other stuff. So I found myself rewatching the Mummy and Frankenstein monster and stuff. And I just remember they're just so beautifully filmed. I mean, it's very pretty. I mean, just how they color. It's not color, but you know what I mean. That silver screen appeal.
And this is only on Shudder. This is only on Shudder.
Yeah, you can get Shudder through Amazon if you're on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
you get on Amazon Prime. I got to look for that.
Yeah, it's really good. You'll like it.
There's enough stuff on there. What I would do is get it for your free 7 days. Watch all there's some great documentaries.
Yeah. Yep, and then cancel it like the rest of us.
That's what I do with some of them. It's like Stars. I do that with is like, I'll get it for 7 days, watch what I need to watch, and then wait like 6 months because then there's nothing else I want to see on that.
You heard it here, everybody.
Some of these platforms are on other platforms they're already paid for. So.
Or if you're like me, you get your children's passwords to all of their stuff, and that way you don't have
get
to
a
pay
letter
for
from
anything. But now, what else was I watching?
But the Boris Karloff documentary is fantastic.
It's very good.
And he was such a lovely man, and
he's a very nice
and I didn't know how lovely he was. I mean, but
he's
very nice. All the people that he helped, and
he loved children.
Yeah, he was very upset about the scene, the Frankenstein monster throwing the little girl in with the flowers.
Yeah.
And they cut that scene, and I didn't even know it existed. They showed that scene in this documentary. And apparently he was so upset about that. I guess that I can't remember the name of the director. It's on the tip of my brain. But the director was angry with him for showing some kind of rebellion on set. And so he made him carry the dummy, or was it? Up the thing to the windmill like 50 times just to make Boris Karloff suffer because he was mad at him. And I watched this really weird movie, and I know Keith's probably heard of it. It's called Blood Harvest with Tiny Tim. And if that doesn't make you afraid of clowns, nothing will. It's ghastly.
How Tiny Tim became a star is still beyond me.
Became a horror star, but my God,
this is when he was older. This is much later on, and I think people start hurting.
His acting didn't get any better the older he got him.
No, the movies. I don't know. A lot of people, like I posted it in a forum, and everybody loves it. So you either love or you hate it. So I mean, because it's slow. It's really slow.
It's a weird tale. It's a strange movie.
I got to tell you. Yeah, getting back to Karloff. I'm sorry, Vicky. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Back to Karloff, and I'm a fan of his. And I think his daughter is still alive. I think
his daughter was one of the big interviewers that was on there.
Yeah, she's still alive, and I think I might even have emailed her once or twice years ago. But they did a marvelous "This Is Your Life."
No, yeah, but he was very uncomfortable with that.
He didn't like it. I know. No, you're absolutely right.
He did not like that at all.
He didn't like that at all, but he was a real gentleman about it.
Yeah, he was. He was.
He was a private man, and he didn't like being surprised.
I don't think I'd like that either. To tell you the truth.
But they did a great job in terms of
who came out behind the curtain. That's what I'd be afraid of.
They found people out of the woods.
Yeah, no shit. It's like, bring out the X. Bring out one of the X's. But
I mean, and he had a reunion kind of with Jack Pierce, who was the makeup guy. And that's on This Is Your Life. And that was, and then Carl was saying, wonderful man, I owe a lot to him. That kind of thing. And I think that, I mean, the legacy that Karloff left, as opposed, and of course, there's always that fight between him and Lugosi. Lugosi was very envious of him. Very envious of him.
Well, he was going to be the Frankenstein monster. He just didn't fit the bill. And because Boris Karloff had the face, you could actually see the face through the makeup. And that's what made him so wonderful for the job.
Lugosi made a terrible decision. He refused it. He was offered the role before Karloff. And he said, no, I do not wish to play a dumb brute. and he wound up
Plan 9 from outer space.
He wound up playing Frankenstein the Universal cycle 15 years later.
I actually liked that movie, though. I love Vampira. So
I think, with Boris Karloff, I sit there and say what really warmed the cockles my hard little heart is when he stated that out of everything he's done, the only thing that he loves the most is when he narrated how the Grinch stole Christmas.
Yes, yeah. He loved that. Yeah, he loved that.
And I sit there and say it's like pure genius. We get Karloff singing one Mr. Grinch, and we got him narrating, and that animated Christmas special that's part of our lives would have never been anything without him being part of that. So.
And we all four can appreciate that because we grew up with it. So, we waited probably for that to happen, with Rudolph and all that stuff back then when we were kids.
And in the 50s, he was actually broadcasting fairy tales for the kids on the radio.
He just loved kids, didn't he?
Yes,
you wouldn't think that such a ghoul that they used to portray him in the movies be such a heartwarming guy, but his story is just fantastic. And I'm really glad I watched it. And if anybody's a fan, and you really need to see what this guy was like, it's fantastic.
The best thing I ever saw was Targets. And that is a wonderful movie that Peter Bogdanovich directed, because Peter Bogdanovich, he just recently passed, was a big fan of Karloff. And Karloff plays an aging horror movie star. And
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That was a wonderful, wonderful movie, and he's talking about, they don't remember me anymore. I'm the boogeyman.
Yeah.
That kind
God,
of thing.
I love him. I so miss the old timers. I do.
Oh, God almighty. It's in the, well, we could go on and on.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
What have you been doing, Keith, besides Cheshire Cat smiling at us?
Basically, I've just been working. I'm now got 39 contracts that I'm trying to finish off now. I think I stated last week, I've signed a 3-game deal with CamCon, and I'm currently writing dialogue for the new Resident Evil game that will be out in 2025, 2026. So at the moment, I have like 8 books of the story of Umbrella and Raccoon City. So I have to read up on every single character in the whole back catalog from the last, I think it's been going for almost 20 years now.
At least.
So I'm getting all the storylines in, taking notes and doing that at the moment.
I keep trying to catch that movie, Resident Evil Raccoon City. I still have not seen it.
Not very good.
It's not?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it. I decided to splash out and watch it from home.
Are you going to watch Halo?
I just wish they kind of would stick to original stories instead of doing what they. Are you
going to watch the Halo series?
I think so. I think the Resident Evil TV series will be released on Netflix in the spring of this year, and then of course Halo. And I think sometimes
Paramount.
Sometimes I think TV series tends to do a bit better than they do with these one-off movies.
Gotcha.
Sometimes. I think you get a bit more growth and stuff like that. Though I have nothing to do with the TV series Resident Evil. It's just a computer game, so I'm writing dialogue for. So,
how's the situation with COVID in England now? The BA2
COVID at the moment, we are now on the tube system, unmasked.
All right.
I'm still wearing a mask at the hospital, of course. That looks like that's going to be ongoing. We're now trialing a vaccine that basically cures COVID. So we're trialing that at the moment, and if everything goes well, that should be available in the summertime.
Good deal.
Which company?
We're also now trialing a vaccine for the cure for AIDS or HIV.
Yes,
that's such a long time coming.
So far, it's been showing a 99.5,
efficacy,
6-7% success rate.
Incredible.
That's just God. That is so good to hear. There's so many people.
If that goes well, then that will be part of the NHS. You'll be able to get it free on the NHS here in the fall.
What about the stealth variant and the what is it, Deltacron and stuff? They think that's basically At
the moment, the only thing that we're worried about is the version of the Unicom COVID virus that you have in the States, because apparently that's the strongest one in the world. Apparently, that's what they're saying.
What's that? What's strongest, Keith?
The COVID Unicom that you have in the States is apparently a lot stronger than anywhere else in the world at the moment. That variant, but.
Talking about the
what
BA2
variant I had last month.
But
made me sick, though.
The Omicron
People are
BA2.
getting sick, but they're not getting respirator sick. That's what we're fighting here. So they're getting the flu, and it's not a nice thing when you get the flu, the flu symptoms. Stuff like
I don't like being sick. Period. I don't care what it is. I just don't want it.
But it's not like the first.
It's not like Delta or Alpha
from 2 years ago, where people are on respirators and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's affecting older people, but flu does affect older people anyway. So, but besides that, I mean, work's kind of gone back. I think working from home is still going to be a thing for the next couple of years anyway, which I quite enjoy doing my 2 days at home and 3 days in clinic. So it works out well for me. So
that's not bad at all. That's nice.
Yeah, pretty good.
That's
so
nice.
what we're going to do now is we're going to cut to Tom's bloopers and special information from Dark Shadows from these episodes, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. We are once again back here, Tom Diamond, with the stars and bloopers for the Dark Shadows 856 to 893. Those are the episodes. So let's get to the stars first. So in 859, Karen Lynn appears as Wanda Paisley. And Wanda Paisley is the extra who Aristede recruits, does the I Ching, and is murdered as a skeleton. And aside from Dark Shadows, she was starred in a forgettable film called Orgy at Lil's Place in 1963. So thank you, Karen Lynn, for participating. Next, Timothy Gordon reappears as the ghost of Jeremiah in 862, 867 episodes. Nice to see him again. In episode 867, and I should mention this, we have the return of Jonathan Frid after a month of doing murder at the cathedral in other venues, and he is the return of Barnabas, and we find that he is returned as the doppelganger of the original Barnabas, which Angelique helped him with. So it's good to see that. The fans were very, very upset when they thought Barnabas was killed off a month prior. Okay, 868 brings the extra of Alfred Hinckley as Dr. Ian Reed, who treats the Barnabas doppelganger in his office. Mr. Hinckley's date of birth was 9/29/1920 in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he passed away on February 4th, 1979 in New York City. Mr. Hinckley was in The Doctors, Bob Hope Presents, and the Chrysler Theater in 1963, East Side, West Side, 1963, and he had a role in The Boston Strangler in 1968, which was that movie with Tony Curtis. Marie Wallace is noted for her return as Megan Todd in episode 866, and she is the wife of Christopher Burnow as Philip Todd, who is a new character on Dark Shadows, and Christopher Burnow was Alan Spaulding on The Guiding Light. He died of AIDS in the 80s, and may his memory be a blessing. We see a ship from the producer of Dark Shadows, which has been Robert Costello from the beginning, to Peter Miner in 875 onwards. And I'm wondering about that, and we'll probably get to that in another episode. Now, in 877, the character of
Garth Blackwood, Master of Dartmoor, is mentioned. And indeed, in 878, John Harkins appears as Garth Blackwood for a number of episodes. He's a brilliant villain who eventually kills Count Petofi, and Charles Delaware State shoots Aristede in the back, and so that's another way of getting rid of him. John Harkins was born on April 5th, 1899 in Pomona Valley, California. And, excuse me. He was born on September 7th, 32 in Michigan. And he passed away on March 5th, 99 in Pomona Valley, California. So sorry for that. He starred in Absence of Malice in 81, Birdie in 89, Being There in 79, Amityville 3D Horror. And he was featured in episodes 879, 881, 883, as well as others. Episode 883 marks the last appearance of Thayer David as Count Petofi, who was killed by Blackwood, but we will, of course, see Thayer David later on and other characters throughout the series. Episode 884 marks the return of Donna McKechnie as Amanda Harris in one episode, but we will see her in subsequent blocks. 885 and 886 regards a return to 1796, and I enjoyed hearing Ben Stokes again as Mr. Barnabas. But other than that, it was a little bit disappointing in terms of Josette. Instead of history was changed, so that instead of committing suicide over Widow's Hill, she took poison. We had the Leviathan plot in episode 886 moving forward, and the two new actors in that, number one is Peter Lombard as the Oberon. Peter Lombard was born October 12, 1935 in Spokane, Washington, and he passed on March 28, 2015 in New York. What you're hearing is me turning the pages as I go through my notes. Peter Lombardo starred in The Tempest in 1982, and he had a couple of other movies, and he appears from 886 on. Robin Lane is the fellow Leviathan, and she appears as Haza, and she was in Teenage Tramp 73 and Incoming Freshman of 79. Those are her claims to fame. The main return of Dennis Patrick as Paul Stoddard, this time Carolyn's father, which appears in episode 888, the wife of Liz and the father of Carolyn, of course. And as you recall, he was Jason McGuire in the first year of Dark Shadows, and helped to get Paul Stoddard to safety back in that plot. And here he is now playing Paul Stoddard, which was really, really interesting. And finally, we have an appearance in episode 893 of Denise Nickerson as Amy Jennings. And, of course, Don Briscoe makes an appearance in one episode as Chris Jennings, once they get back to the present. So now that we've covered that, let's get to the bloopers. So now we get to the bloopers. And we see one in 866 right away where the famous Collinsport flies through the drawing room stage to the left in the beginning of the episode. And by the way, there aren't a lot of bloopers in this block, thank goodness. Although there are a few that are definitely worth mentioning. And once again, I'm bypassing the shadows of the mics on the walls and the shadows of the cameras and so forth, unless it's absolutely necessary. In 856, you'll also notice that Thayer David, when being pushed
bumps into a wall in Thayer David's room, and apparently that's a secret passage, and the door opens up, and of course I didn't think that they were going to put him in there, and so it does seem like an accident. There's also some coughing on stage that you should look at during that episode. 1861 has a blooper in that Klieg lights are noted in the Collinwood Mirror, and you'll see this throughout some of these episodes where there's just a big array, looks kind of rectangular, of Klieg lights. And you'll notice that in the mirror where various characters are talking. And in another episode, you can see Klieg lights in a partition of in a lamp. In a lamp, you'll see Klieg lights in lamps, and you'll see you'll see 5 or 6 in one, 6, 7 or 8 in another, and it's all the reflection of the Klieg lights in the lighting system of shadows. 864 is noted for a couple of bloopers, but the one I want to mention, which is a famous one, is that when Pansy visits Charles Delaware Tate, Roger Davis, in his studio, and Roger opens the door and lets her in, and when he shuts the door, the window next to him, and I think it's the window shade, crashes to the floor as Roger shuts the door. The curtains over the window shade stay intact, but you can see the window shade underneath it crashing to the floor with a clatter, a very famous blooper, and Roger actually looks in that direction as it happens, and then just picks up with his lines like the pro he is. Episode 866. So if you look at Josette's portrait, up to now, the portrait has never been signed. But of course, in order to help the plot of Catherine L. Scott's current character, the wife of the Earl of Hampshire, Kitty Soames, who is being possessed by Josette, you now see for a couple of days in the lower right-hand corner of Josette's portrait the name Coswell and the date 1797 to kind of jog the mind of Kitty Soames into realizing that indeed she is the reincarnation of Josette. However, the idea of it being painted in 1797, when in fact that portrait was delivered in 1795, still bears some scrutiny. So the writer screwed up there. But anyway, after a couple of days, as you see Coswell and the date, all of a sudden it disappears. And if that isn't a blooper, I don't know what is. In episode 867, which is the first episode where you actually see Jonathan in his coffin with the stake through his heart, prefatory to the doppelganger Barnabas showing up, and that's a great scene actually, when Edward and Quentin bring the doppelganger Barnabas in to look at the coffin, and the coffin is open. And neither Edward or Quentin expect to see Barnabas there, and the look on Quentin's face when he sees Barnabas with a stake through his heart is priceless. But in 867, Jonathan is actually breathing, and you can see his chest going up and down as the stake vampire in the coffin. You know, I think it's interesting, as of 871, the 49th pentagram, the pentagram chain, is actually figured out by Quentinus Petofi as the a particular combination if he wants to return to the future. But that kind of goes against when people do the I Ching. They throw the wand on the floor, and whatever wand they get and whatever combination they get, that's the one they're supposed to go through. So it's kind of like stacking the deck to say that the pentagram of change, even though that's true, is a way of getting back to the future. And so it sounds like anybody now can go into the future if they hit the pentagram of change. And that's what Petofi and Quentin does in order to appear at Collinwood in the 20th century in the drawing room. And that's a really chilling scene. That's a very chilling scene. And it's unfortunate that they only kept that for a minute. And you see Catherine Leigh Scott now as Maggie Evans hearing something's wrong and going down there. But the wands are strewn on the floor before, and of course, Petofi and Quentin is very, very mad at the whole affair. There are a number of characters that are killed in this block, finally. Beth winds up, of course, history's changed, but Beth winds up falling to her death from Widow's Hill in an attempt to escape. Quentin, who has since recovered his mind, of course, he and Petofi had exchanged minds, and he was able to get that back. But Beth didn't know that, and in trying to get away from Quentin, who she thought was Petofi, she threw herself off Widow's Hill. She makes one more. Terry Crawford as Beth makes one more appearance as a ghost in a later episode of this block to tell Quentin she forgives him. But that indeed is the last appearance of Beth. You also see a number of other characters killed. You see Aristede killed. Petofi is killed by Garth Blackwood in a big fight, which burns the house down, which is going to be Maggie's cottage 100 years later. You kind of wonder how that happened. So obviously the house must have been rebuilt. So you have a number of characters being killed off. Evan Hanley is killed off as Humperdinck Estredo. All this is, but that's not the last thing you see of Humperdinck Estredo, because he will come back as a character in another block, and that will be very, very interesting to see. 879 has an interesting blooper while Quentin is fighting with Garth in the cemetery. You actually see the tombstone or headstone of Carolyn Collins Stoddard. And I think they were doing some stuff in advance, because in a block later on, you're going to see Dark Shadows will go into the future in 1995, and that is something for the fans to look forward to. And that headstone of Carolyn Stoddard is a reference, but for her to have a headstone in 1897 is obviously impossible. So that's a big one. Now, of course, in episode 880, we see that Trask finally gets his comeuppance. He is walled into the room. Judith and Tim Shaw brick wall him into the room, which is a reminder of the way Barnabas walled Trask up in the basement of the old house in 1795. But if you remember, when David and Amy in the prior block first discovered the skeleton of what was Quentin, there was no wall, and they basically broke their way through a panel. And then the door was right there, and they were able to open it, and the skeleton was dressed in Quentin's clothes. Now, of course, the skeleton will be dressed in Trask's priestly or reverend clothes, and this goes to show you that Barnabas, by coming into 1897, changed history completely, and so it is now at Trask that is walled up. And it is basically the writers, and of course Dan Curtis realized that they were going to keep Quentin on because of the popularity of David Selby, so they had to switch gears, and instead of Quentin being walled up, it's now Trask. In episode 881, you can see Roger Davis as Charles Delaware Tate trying to stifle a laugh as Garth Blackwood is emoting and talking about how he's going to kill Petofi and so forth. and he kind of hides a grin and he bends his head down. So look for that one. And he recovers very quickly, and that's a tribute to Roger as an actor. Also in 881, and I remember Pansy, Charity Trask has been possessed by the spirit of Pansy Faye, and that's going to be there forever. But Quentin still manages to call her Charity at one point. But in every other reference to her in that scene, he calls her Pansy. So that was probably a slip. Big blooper in 883, while Quentin and Charity are talking, you see stage right a stagehand who is dressed in black, who moves quickly into the camera range and just as quickly out of the camera range. Again, in episode 1884, you're going to see a Klieg light above the Charles's studio. And remember to look for the Klieg light, by the way, in the mirror of the foyer at Collinsport. There's a nice big Klieg light that is shown when the camera focuses on the mirror. 887 has a great blooper. They had gone back to 1796 for 2 days and then returned to the present. But in the exposition of episode 887, they panned around the old house in 1796, and what do you see on the coat rack but the coat of 1969 Julia Hoffman, which has no business in the year 1796. And of course, once they get back to the present, you see Julia taking that same coat and going out with it. It's a gray check coat. So watch for that. That's a good one. That was 1887. That was episode 887. And in 886, not that it's a blooper, but it is the first time that Jonathan Frid bites Grayson Hall as Natalie Dupre during the 1796 flashback. So finally, Grayson Hall got hers from the big guy. Episode 887 has the blooper of being able to see 6 Klieg lights in the light that is covered by an 1890s kind of bowl. You can see 6 Klieg lights, 3 plus 3 plus 3 in the left one, 2 plus 3 plus 1 in the right one. And that is extremely trivial. But what it goes to show you is that essentially the show could not avoid showing those reflections of Klieg lights or other lighting whenever there was a reflection on any of the equipment on the actual set that was able to promote a reflection of Klieg lights, including the mirrors that we talked about earlier. And so that's a sample of some but not all of the bloopers in that particular segment. And again, there aren't as many bloopers as there were in prior blocks, but there were a couple of big ones that we're interested to see. And now, thank you very much for listening, and let's get back to the show.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and it's Dark Shadows episode, where we'll be discussing episodes from October 1969 and November 1969. And scene 1 will be Petofi's story. Petofi gives Quentin a ring. He then blinds him and then cures him to show off his powers. Petofi's mind is taken over Quentin's body so that Petofi can have a body to inhabit in 1969. Aristede finds a woman, Wanda Paisley, on whom Petofi may test the I Ching wand. Sorry, it's always I Ching. I always want to say I Ching to people.
I know. I Ching.
In Quentin's body, he convinces Evans that Petofi, is in Quentin's body. They pretend to hold a ceremony. He then forces Evan to dig a grave. While in Quentin's body, he watches Charles Delaware Tate use the I Ching wands in a ceremony. And he enters the I Ching trance and moves through the door to the Collinwood present. He demands that Barnabas returns the portrait of Quentin. Charity attempts to steal his glasses. Petofi recalls Aristede being pursued by Gareth Blackwood, a sadistic prison master from England. So, Tom, what is your thought of Petofi's story in this block?
Well, what a mouthful. Well, the first thing that I want to emphasize is that in our last block, something happened that there were just so many things to talk about that we neglected to mention the fact that Barnabas was staked in the last block. That was a very, very kind of sentinel event where Charity staked, where Charity is a pansy, staked Barnabas after Quentin tried to do it and couldn't. That was actually Jonathan took a month off to portray the lead in Murder in the Cathedral. So he was on tour while they had other people, where they had the other stars sub in. But fans were going nuts when that happened. Fans cried. There were no suicides.
I could see why, though. That was disturbing. It's like, oh my God.
Couldn't believe it.
Massive cliffhanger.
They couldn't believe it. They couldn't. Barnabas getting staked. What's going on? They thought
right.
show. There was a big hullabaloo, and so in this block he comes back, and we know that it was the doppelganger plot was used, and it was a kind of a nice special effects scene where Angelique. Threw dust at the mirror and everything like that, and his image was captured in the mirror. You first see him as a vampire, and then when Angelique mouths the words and everything, all of a sudden there's a kind of a white light, and then you see him turn from the green ghoulish vampire to a normal complexion, almost oil of Olay, and so quite frankly, so that is something to be mentioned. Do any of you have any comments on that before I proceed to
I thought it was quite nice to have Barnabas out of the picture for a little while.
Yeah, let everybody else
other characters some room
shine.
to grow. It left a bit of mystery. It gave us something different with him as well. For him not,
Absolutely.
Though I have to say that no one seemed to be mourning his death very much. Just kind of like, and I found, I have to say in this block of episodes, there just seems to be, because we are closing up the 1897 storyline in
right.
the block.
Right.
But and like the 1700 storyline, we do get a succession of people being killed off in succession, and
yes.
Yes. We'll be discussing with it later. It seems like they go and it's like, okay, they're gone.
Beth commits suicide, comes back as a ghost, throws herself off Widow's Hill.
Why does everybody want to jump to their death and splat like that down there? It's like everybody wants to jump off that cliff.
Well, it's like she tripped in order to get away from Quentin, who she thought was
she thought Petofi, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I know, but they always go to that cliff.
Well, it's the only cliff in town. So.
But there's a cliff the next town over in case it's taken up, Yeah. If there's a line at Widow's Hill.
What I quite liked is the way that we will discuss it, in a couple scenes later on, is how they were able to bring him back, and that made everything very, very interesting, and it made the audience start second guessing what the hell was going on. And
we were so pleased to see him back, and we didn't know how that was going to be explained. And that scene where, of course, Edward thinks he's and it's amazing to me that nobody ever thought of taking the stake out of his heart. That would have been the one way to revive him right away. And nobody.
Don't everybody know you're supposed to stuff their mouth full of garlic and you're supposed to cut their head off? Does everybody just forget everything?
That I think would have
been. Well, I also think that I don't think there's not a lot of beheading going on in daytime television.
The censors wouldn't have allowed it. Censors wouldn't have allowed it, I'm afraid.
So tame.
But that scene was marvelous. And of course, you had Sybil Weinberger's music of shock and surprise, and Robert Covert, where they open the coffin expecting to find it empty, and they've got the gun poised to his heart. And Edward says, "If that coffin is empty, use that gun, Quentin." And Petofi as Quentin says, "With pleasure." And then they open it up, and then you see Barnabas with the stake, and then you see the other Barnabas, a great double effect. And the look on Selby's face is pure. It's gold. It's really gold. I mean, Petofi thinks he knows everything.
Right.
And Petofi loves to be in control. Well, this is something new for him. And he just like, what? That kind of thing. And, of course, Edward is apologizing all over the place, but it's a great scene and probably one of the best scenes in Dark Shadows. And it was in Mary O'Leary's recent documentary. That's one of the first scenes that she has on there. So, but getting back to scene 3. This is of course the Petofi switches minds with Quentin. And I think Selby did a great job as Petofi. I love Thayer David, and and he is so good as Petofi. I have
to say, Thayer David makeup makes him look like Mrs. Beasley from Family Affair.
I know. I'm sorry. What's with the wig? I could almost get the Coke bottle glasses, but what's with the wig? I mean, we all remember the 60s and the 70s for the most part here. I don't remember hair like that.
Petofi,
not even on Jerry Garcia.
Thayer David is a great actor.
And I love
great
Jerry.
Ben Stokes. Great Petofi.
I don't think he did very well being...
Thank you.
Just as Petofi being Quentin.
That's what I was going to say. I agree with you 100%.
That was a little difficult.
That was a little disappointment. That was a little bit of a disappointment.
I thought he did really good. He had to pretend he was somebody else, pretending to be somebody else. I thought it was kind of good.
Well, no, I thought that David Selby being Petofi
was much better.
I thought he was just.
Selby's extremely strong.
He was relishing every moment of it.
He was super. That's one thing about Selby. He can play the evil character very well. And also when he's doing the ceremonies and chanting and he looks up to the sky and the devil. And he surprisingly was, I didn't expect that out of him until I watched the episodes again, because of course I watched them when I was a kid. But looking at it on the big screen, Petofi, I think that Selby did a great job as Petofi. And he really scared the hell out of everybody.
He was evil incarnate. And I really wish when we were interviewing David Selby that I would have asked him about Count Petofi. I could kick myself now.
Well, maybe we'll interview him again one day. You never know.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a hold of him.
Before this. But again... okay, so Evan Hanley, I think is, I think although Humbert Allen Strader can do a great job when he chants too, but I think already it was getting kind of old with Evan Hanley. Everybody,
you think it played its course?
Yeah, and that's why when Evan Hanley was killed, I said, "Well, okay, finally,
Bummer."
He will come back, and the next character he plays when he comes back will be a surprise to the new fans, not to the old fans. But he will portray one of the favorite Dark Shadows characters. There will be a reprise, and I'm not going to say anything more. So let's stick to that.
Now let's talk about Aristede eye makeup. I mean, was Laura Parker doing his eye makeup for him, or would he have a thing?
Whose eye makeup?
Aristede. I mean, basically.
Don't get me going.
Between that and the smoky eye and the guy liner, you're just like, okay. I mean,
I hate it when guys could do smoky eye better than me. It's really annoying.
They really miss something.
Don't you find it annoying, Barbara?
Yeah, by the end of this, with his little page boy haircut and the smoky eye thing, it basically looked like he's turning into Louise Brooks. So,
I'm going to say it again. They really missed something with Stroker, because Stroker looks like Fred.
He does.
They could have had him as the younger brother of Barnabas.
Something.
They could have had him as something, but instead they give him this. But he gets rid of the dancing lady, that wooden sword, and now he has a regular. Now he has a regular knife when he stabs Petofi with it. And
they were able to bring back the skeleton again.
That same skeleton.
So that's in another one. Yes, that's the other one. Oh, and Garth Blackwood, and that's from Dartmoor. He's the prison master from Dartmoor.
He played Johnny.
Johnny?
King Johnny. What was
No, that wasn't. No, King
Isn't
Johnny
that
Romano
him? Is that the
Paul
same
Michael.
actor?
No.
Like him.
King Johnny Romano was Paul Michael.
Why does he look just like him?
This guy, Garth Blackwood, was played by John Harkins. And
I thought they were same one.
And John and I got to tell you, he tried to get that Scottish accent in there a little bit, I am the master of Dartmoor, and I have come to get to justice will be done. He
had issues. He definitely had issues.
Well, I didn't even think of it as trying to be Scottish. I was like, okay, what accent's that?
Cockney. We blame it all on the Cockney accent.
He did some other stuff too. I'm blanking out on it, After Dark Shadows, but that was certainly, and I think Harkins came back in another character, and you'll see that you'll see that later on. But I think he did. I think he was a really menacing villain. I wouldn't want to meet him in an alley on a dark street. And he and Petofi had the eventual fight, which led to the death of both of them. And the only thing is that the house, and this was in Charles Delaware Tate's house, which was the same set that's used as Maggie's house in the present. So that all burns up and so forth, and the house is in ruins and disheveled. And now you take a look back, when they go back to 1969 and it's in this block, the house looks perfect. So, I don't know. It must have been rebuilt.
What happened to Donna McKechnie?
Once. Amanda Harris. She was in one episode. She is
so beautiful.
What happened to her?
She was in one episode.
She went to New York City.
Everyone wanted to jump her bones, and then she
went to New York City.
She went to New York City, and Quentin went to New York looking for her.
It's like, what happened to her?
And there's a brief scene between the two of them, and she's so thrilled he's there, and he has to tell her it can't work out because he doesn't know where the the portrait is, and he doesn't want to.
Well, that portrait really did kind of get lost in the shuffle a couple times, didn't it?
Well, it turned out that Charles Delaware Tate painted white over the portrait, but I thought that there was a discontinuity, because I thought that when Petofi as Quentin was going to go into the future, he packed a bag and he told Charity to bury it like a kind of a time capsule.
Yeah, he did.
And I could have sworn he put the portrait in that time capsule. So now all of a sudden it's in Charles's house, and I don't see how the hell that happened. So that's maybe another discontinuity. Maybe the writers forgot it. I'm sure.
I vaguely remember how he got that. I don't remember how he got it, but gosh, that is a good question. I know what episode to look for it, though.
Good for you.
I'll figure it out.
Maybe an enterprising fan will write to me saying, "How dare you say that?" This was at line 659 of episode 686. Well, that granular we don't get, but I thought that
I'm trying to remember.
I kind of wish that they had kept Petofi on, and now you would disagree with me, Vicky, but I kind of wish that they had kept Petofi in the present. Somehow Petofi comes to the present and starts instead of
he was just a frustrating villain. That's all. It's just like he always was ahead of everybody. And he just couldn't ever seem to thwart him. And that hand, oh my God, that hand!
The hand was everything.
The hand.
My problem with Petofi is that to have a good villain, they should have some kind of chink or some kind of weakness. And unfortunately, Petofi had no weakness. And sometimes
he didn't kill Johnny Romano.
You kind of need a little bit of a weakness because that helps you identify with that villain a little bit.
He did in the beginning because Johnny Romano was the one person that Petofi could not harm because Johnny Romano, when he confronts Petofi and everything, you see Petofi tries to use the hand on him, and Johnny Romano grabs it, and he's as weak as anything. He can't do anything. He's immune. So that was his weakness. But then it was taken away when Johnny Romano was killed by Aristede. So at that point, the next time you see a weakness is when his hold and possessing Quentin is starting to be weakened. The power of the hand transfers from Petofi to Quentin. In fact, Petofi wants to make Barnabas a vampire again, if you remember, and he touches Barnabas and nothing happens. That's because Quentin now has the power. And when Quentin realizes he has it, then that's how Quentin is able to transfer his mind back to Petofi, because now Quentin uses the same trance. So that's a story. That's a story there.
Then we also get the death of Aristede as well. So
the death of who?
Yeah. I know you guys like Aristede, but I found him most annoying sometimes.
Well, I quite liked him, but I thought at first he was quite a strong character, but then it got to the point where
they didn't really do a lot with him.
I think it's not for the Dark Shadows curse, because what happens with Dark Shadows is like it has all these great characters, but then when they start to have to move them around in this chessboard, some of them kind of get left away for a while, and then they disappear. And then when they come back, they tend to sometimes to be a little bit weaker, or something's going on with them that the writers have lost concentration with that character a little bit.
Barbara, I have a question for you from a writer's standpoint. What do you think of all these plots? All these, like he's got like 7 plots interweaving, interconnecting, all going on at the same time in the soap opera environment where there's this production and things have to get done every day. How hard is that from the writer's standpoint? How hard a job is that?
Well, you should really ask George R.R. Martin, who juggles a lot of balls. But in my opinion, I mean, every character and their personality and their storyline is like a quiver, an arrow in your quiver, and you can always take it out when you need it, put it back. Sometimes I say, I need a character who can fill this plot hole, and it turns out to be somebody, maybe I thought was minor, and then they turn out to be a major character. But I was thinking about, you and Vicki both said it was a soap opera, and it really is a soap opera. So the characters are constantly leaving and coming back and changing. Yeah. But I also thought of it as like the parent of Supernatural, where people die, they come back as a ghost, they come back as whatever. And also I was thinking of Orphan Black, where she has to play a character, playing another character, playing another character.
Yes.
And so I really feel like the influence of Dark Shadows is really understated and unappreciated when you look at what came after it.
I agree with you.
A lot of people, like Twilight Zone, how many plots have been ripped off from Twilight Zone?
No kidding.
But
Outer Limits.
That it was just so overly dramatic, but yet it meant that it was so popular for so long. And now back to Dark Shadows, it really spoke to people, their fears. I mean, I was 8 years old when this first came out, and I remember the one, I accidentally saw Dark Shadows on TV, and it scared the crap out of me. I mean, I used to sleep with like a T-shirt around my neck, so like the.
Did you really?
I did. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "No."
That's great.
So Dark Shadows.
Barnabas is coming to get me.
We have a history, and Barnabas. I always thought he was like. I liked Barnabas the best. No matter who came and went, he was the guy I liked. But it's confusing to have so many characters. I mean, just reading the plot summaries, you're just like, who?
Yeah.
Or they're a person who used to be someone else, and now they're in the future, in the past. I mean,
the repertory company
gave themselves so much leeway to just do whatever the heck they wanted. Like they're like, okay, let's just kill this person. Then we'll bring them back as a ghost. Then we'll, turn them into a vampire. Then we'll turn them back out of a vampire. And so it gave them a lot of plots, and people liked it.
I should say that when I refer to it as a soap opera, you really, it has certain melodramatic elements in it, which are reminiscent of, but it was not the usual soap opera that was on in the 60s, where boy meets girl, boy gets girl pregnant, boy marries girl, boy divorces girl. In Dark Shadows, it's boy meets girl, boy bites girl, boy turns girl into vampire, then
boy pushes girl off cliff.
But the
sister is a werewolf.
Then we go back in time. Then we go forward in time. Then we go back in time.
But the themes of love and betrayal and, and being faithful and being unfaithful and tricking people. And the same as is in soap operas. I mean, everyone has their own agenda.
In fact, that's one of the cardinal elements of Barnabas. You betrayed me, that kind of thing. And
he's always strangling Julia. Everybody strangles Julia. Have you noticed that every male character at one time or another has tried to strangle Julia except Edward?
And for the first time,
or Louis Edmonds.
And for the first time,
it's easier to strangle because she always wearing comfortable shoes.
And for the first time since Grayson Hall started playing those roles in the 1796 two-day thing, which we'll talk about, Barnabas finally bites Grayson Hall as Natalie Dupre.
Yes.
Grayson Hall must have had fun with that. She finally gets bitten by Barnabas, and Fred really hammed it up. He really hammed that one up.
They had such chemistry. I mean, as friends or whatever, foes. I mean, the chemistry between them is just, there's no way to deny it. I mean, they were great together.
Well, what I also liked was, and this I thought the writers were interesting, in that they developed a friendship between Julia and Angelique that had never been before.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what's going down here? Well, this is unusual.
They decided to help each other out. I don't think Angelique had kind of grown since all. If you take a look at the Angelique of 1897 near the end of this block and the Angelique of 1795, Angelique's not envious of Julia anymore. She realizes that she has nothing to feel threatened by. She knows that Barnabas is not interested in her that way. So there's nothing to feel threatened by, and they come to a meeting of the minds, and it's fascinating to see. I mean that is definitely unexpected. It's one of the more clever changes, I think.
Well, this brings us to scene number 2, Quentin's story. Quentin plays the piano for Charity and then tells her he could never play the piano. Julia starts to hear voices from the present, and Angelique is puzzled by Quentin's behavior. In Petofi's body, Quentin orders Kitty to steal Quentin's portrait. Quentin's wedding is set. Angelique decides her marriage must be postponed. In a seance, Charity calls upon a spirit to appear. Angelique visits a mysterious cave. Charity tells Angelique that Quentin is not who he appears to be. Quentin is in Petofi's body, tries to explain the switch to Angelique. Angelique tries to convince Aristede to save her. Beth discovers about the mind switch. Using Petofi's power, Quentin attempts to reverse the mind switch. He orders Aristede to stab Petofi in Quentin's body. Back in his own body, Quentin is determined to leave Collinwood and tries to stay awake. To keep Petofi from possessing him again, Barnabas asks Angelique to help Quentin. Yes, it's that confusing about who's what's body. So Vicky, what's your thoughts on Quentin's story?
Why, give me the confusing one. Oh, gosh. Okay. I wasn't really surprised Angelique wanted to postpone her wedding to Quentin because I think at that point she knew that Petofi had taken over Quentin's body, correct? I believe she had been warned. Yes, she was. Either that or she didn't like how he was all over her because let's face it, Petofi probably hadn't gotten any in a long time. And now that he looked like he was Quentin, he was just like after all the good looking women in Dark Shadows that week. But
he couldn't really use his smooths, his game to really draw in the women and get what he wanted. So he had kind of like use another kind of way to do it, didn't he? So
well, yeah, because let's face it, Count Petofi's not really that pretty to look at as opposed to Quentin Collins. Because face it, David Selby was a lot of eye candy back then too. And Angelique, Angelique is fickle because, she's always trying to force other men to marry her. Mm-hmm. And she's such a beautiful woman. They make this beautiful woman look like she has to force a man to marry her. I mean, I find that annoying sometimes. I'm sorry. Because she can have anybody she wants.
I think you also have to, but you also look at Angelique is that she's not demure, is she? And we're talking about 1897. And if you're a hard, strong, strong-minded woman,
God forbid,
they're not going to be really drawn to you at that time because at that time women weren't people.
Well, look at Kitty. Kitty
Joan Bennett.
But the women were not people; they were owner. I mean, that's something
basically.
Unfortunately,
but look at Joan Bennett.
Yeah, don't get me going. Don't get Barbara going.
But I mean, but Joan Bennett is a real interesting. I mean, at first they have her as a meek, servile. And
I love how she gets sparky.
And
then she gets the money in the will, and she turns into the master of Collinwood.
That's what happens. But that's what happens with women, though. When they're young, their ownership. If something happens, they never get married, and once they pass a certain age, then they become a matron, which is totally different from being a woman, sort of thing.
And she married Trask. She fell for that like a ton of bricks.
She'd never been laid before, and she never had a boyfriend. So
how do you know she'd never been laid before?
Says so. She said she's never had
to be married to get laid.
Before she married Trask, when she tells about her storyline, she said she's never dated anyone.
That's true.
And she's never been married.
She's probably a virgin. And so probably knowing Trask, he's probably going to keep her that way because he's running around with other women.
He wants Amanda for a while.
Well,
that's right.
He wanted Amanda, but it's not like he was going to go anywhere. Amanda wasn't going to have any of that anyway.
Well, first she liked Tim Shaw. Got to remember that. First she liked Tim Shaw before she met Quentin. And then Quentin romanced her. And while he was romancing Beth. I think
she's the only woman Quentin ever really loved, is she not?
He loved Beth. He loved Beth, I think.
Well, he loved Beth, but not with that big grand passion that he has for Amanda.
That's true.
But Amanda's not even a woman.
Well, Amanda's an illusion, but she's still physical. But
he doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know that.
He doesn't know that. I mean, that does all come out later on.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we'll get more into the Amanda one in the next scenes.
That's right. And it turns into
you got
kind of thing. Sure.
Okay, you got Petofi. I mean, he was at this point, Quentin's still trying to reverse the mind switch as well. I was really frustrated for Quentin. I think he did a good job. I think Petofi doing Quentin, he did a good job because I really felt sad for Quentin being stuck in Petofi's body and how frustrating that must have been for him. It's like, it's me. It's sort of like Horton Hears a Who. We are here, and nobody's like, no one's paying attention.
But he realized that when he was telling everybody, they were all saying, "Oh, it's too fantastic! It's too fantastic!" Everybody, all the characters are saying it's too fantastic.
Out of all the supernatural stuff that happens to these people on a daily basis, they're a little freaked out by a mind switch.
Yeah, all these characters suffer from like Alzheimer's. They don't remember anything that happened like a week ago.
They don't.
Well, they're really hopefully in a good place rather than a bad place, since you talk about Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. But by the way, Vicky, the answer to your question is that Quentin as Petofi told Angelique the whole story. She went to see him in the in Petofi's little stone dungeon or whatever, because she's saying, we had an agreement. Why are you reneging on the agreement? Because she thinks that the mischief that's being worked is Petofi's doing. And Quentin as Petofi says to her, "You're the first one I should have told about this." And she believes
exactly.
It. But you know something? If she had been the first one, we would have had this plot resolved in a week rather than a month. I mean, they wanted to stretch this out as long as they could. And I'm kind of glad they did, only to see David Selby act the way he did as Petofi, and I think in my mind it was marvelous. And I just think that although yes, you hear the desperation coming out of Thayer David as Quentin, but he's not able to mimic the same stuff as Quentin, because Quentin is always very sarcastic.
Right.
He's always very sarcastic. As
One of my favorite traits.
All the one-liners, like when Angelique says to him, "I'm going to be a beautiful bride," and Quentin says, "Yes, and I'll be a miserable groom."
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that you don't see in the writing in
This is true. That is a good point. I have to admit that, because he wasn't sarcastic, but he was so desperate. He had never been put in that kind of position of desperation, because this is a rich playboy that just doesn't have, care. Now he's got all this stuff going on.
Do you think this about switching people's minds and other people's bodies, do you think this was like the catalyst for like Freaky Friday and movies that would come out?
You never know. I mean, when was that first one done? Like the
Freaky Friday was in the 70s. Was it the
70s?
That's Dirty Foster. Possible. About, wasn't it? 75.
Dark Shadows set the ground for so many things.
It did. It really was a pioneer.
So the sympathetic vampire. The sympathetic vampire of Frid. You've got you've got Twilight. You've got
sparkly vampires
like that. Yeah, well, the Frid wasn't as sparkly.
He wasn't sparkly. I liked him in the beginning, though, when they made him look really kind of with the eyebrow thing going on. They really got a thing for unibrows on this show. Have you ever noticed that?
Funny. I think about, I know when we did Bewitched, we talked about how empowered the women were.
Right.
And, I think about that, and when you think about vampires, you always think of women as the victims, but I think the women in these shows seem that they are empowered a lot of the time, and more so than women of their time. I mean, you think about women couldn't even have a credit card. I mean, it's like in the real world. I mean,
credit card, are you kidding?
I remember when my mom got her first remember when the MasterCard, it just had the two things on it, the circles, and it said Mrs. John Ray on it.
Exactly. You couldn't even have your own name.
You couldn't even say Mrs. Lillian Ray on it. It had to be John Ray.
We covered a Bewitched episode that Samantha, the show was 1960, where we got
like 68, 69.
And then and one of the storylines is that she couldn't go to the bank to draw out money.
Exactly.
And she couldn't have her own bank account.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking. I mean, sometimes TV goes where it goes ahead of where society is. But
yeah,
I mean, I think, that traditionally women were always the screaming victim in a vampire story and always preyed upon and the prey. But I think in this show that a lot of them are empowered. They have their own agendas. They're full characters, and they, they're capable of subterfuge too.
Yeah.
Barbara, except when Angelique was a vampire. Oh. And I don't know if you remember that one. Now, there was a very, very different kind of character. She was she was mean. She was devious. She was no pushover.
What about Eve? Eve was no pushover.
Yeah, Eve was no pushover either. And it's very interesting because you bring this up, and it's one of the other scenes. But now, of course, Marie Wallace comes back as Megan Todd. And Megan Todd is the Father Knows Best housewife at first.
It's like, dang, but what a switch.
What versatility. But I think that was more of what was kind of expected. But Judith, I think, is very interesting because first they have her as a weakling, then they have her as a control freak, then Gregory plays with her head and sends her to the sanitarium. And Keith, what a great job they did on her. She comes back raring to go after him. And she pulls,
she figures out what a cad and a liar and
she shows herself
wretched human being he is.
She winds up killing him, and we're going to get into that when we get into one of the other.
I wish
scenes.
I could. I wish I had those ideas before I got my divorce.
Well, you'd wall them up. You'd wall your ex up, huh?
You also have to look at
might have done that
Julia Hoffman. Julia Hoffman, female doctor, 1967 to 1969. She's a general practitioner. She's a psychiatrist. She's a sociologist. She's
an archaeologist. She's an
occultist. Everything.
She's a lab. She has a
lab. She gives everybody drugs. She's the pharmaceutical queen. She's always got sedatives. She's always pushing sedatives on people.
I have to say that Joan Bennett's character always seems to have drugs on the side as well.
Oh, she was always trying to get Vicky drugs. She was constantly trying to get Vicky sedatives. Take a sedative. Everybody took sedatives, I guess, back then.
Exactly.
Mother's little helper, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where Rolling Stones must have got it from.
By the way, the great blooper, there aren't too many in this one, but the great blooper is when they're in 1795 and they go back now to 1969, but in the beginning of the episode, they do a pan of the old house as it looked in 1795, and there is Julia's 1969 coat hanging on the rack.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yep.
Remember what episode?
I'll find it for you.
That's all. But just hit me up with it later.
Well, we do have the timeless Afghan that travels.
The Afghan is there.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. And I have to tell you
that no moths have ever eaten.
I have to tell you that the traveling Afghan had another life after Dark Shadows. Guess what show it went to? Little House on the Prairie.
It did not.
Yes, it did. You will see traveling Afghans in Little House on the Prairie in different places. And you'll see it in, and Laura's Bed. And by the way, Catherine Leigh Scott had a part in Little House on the Prairie.
I didn't know that.
I just finished watching all 9 years. Yes, she was in one of the episodes of Little House on the Prairie.
I don't recall seeing her in it.
Wife, yeah, you gotta look for it. I'll find that one for you.
I watched all of them. I still love Little House on the Prairie. I'll turn it on if I see it on. No, she's in one of the episodes. I did not know that.
And the other movie, and the other movie that I happened to see it in by accident was The Prisoner of Second Avenue with Jack Lemmon and
Neil Simon.
Yeah, it was a Neil Simon play with Jack Lemmon and then Bancroft. Cool. There's an Afghan in his apartment. So yes, everybody, there is life for the traveling Afghan after Dark Shadows.
Well, that Afghan really made the circuit.
That and the Collinsport Fly.
Yeah, the Collins.
I'm thinking of starting a website called the Collinsport Fly.
You should.
And all the Collinsport Fly fans will get on. I know Keith gets there.
That's funny. That totally went there for a second.
Well, this brings us to scene number 3, 1897, Collinwood. Judith returns to Collinwood from the sanitarium. Gregory Trask learns that Judith is back and making plans. Barnabas appears at Collinwood, claiming to be a relative from England. Barnabas' coffin is set on fire. Trask later confronts Barnabas with a cross. Trask asks Evan's help in influencing Judith. Judith orders Tim Shaw to brick up Trask inside Quentin's room. Trask calls Judith on Quentin's telephone and begs for mercy. Blackwood spirit seeks revenge and Aristede.
Blackwood.
So, what's your thoughts on this part of it?
Blackwood is a real bad penny. I just keep popping up wherever you go.
I actually love this bit. Actually, Judith,
I love him to death. I think
without vengeance.
I love him.
Judith get some proverbial balls. It actually does.
But let me ask you a question. So Trask cannot make outgoing calls. When he tries to, he can't make outgoing calls. Yet she's able to call him. How'd they do that?
I don't know how they did that, but I guess it was just a line in. I guess they had line in, like intercom stuff back then.
I don't know if he had that in. I know you
I don't think they had it back then.
I think she called Alexander Graham Bell.
Like the kitchen to the den or something like that.
I was kind of hoping when Trask was trying to get a hold of Judith that he was going to hit a party line. Remember party
that
line?
That would have been fun. And that's how he would have been let out. And then Judith would have been arrested. for it. No, she might have tried to buy her way out of it.
Not but to now, mention Tim. Was it Tim? Or yeah,
sure, Briscoe.
Yeah, I mean, I have to sit there and say, as we're wrapping up 1897, did you feel like when you're watching these last episodes for 1897, sometimes it felt like you were missing an episode somewhere, that something's happened somewhere, and you're like, wait.
I actually fell asleep for 10 minutes during one because I was watching it late at night, and I immediately had to go back and watch it because I could not go on to watch the other ones because I couldn't miss any of this. You could not miss any of this, or you were screwed for the next episode.
Well, so, that was why it was very complicated. The fans and the famous story, even the writers forgot what was going on, and they went out into the street to talk to the fans and ask the fans about the plot line. I don't know if you're aware of that, Barbara. That's a very true story. That's a very funny story. That the writers,
runners. I mean, just there's so much going on. I mean, it's like, how do you even keep these things? You know, the scenes are just changing all the time, and every one of them is, different characters, and there's just...
He didn't use storyboards,
but the fans knew. And that was the thing. And the ones who were very detail-oriented stayed with the show. The ones who were not detail-oriented went back to Tom Baldwin and Audrey on General Hospital.
Yeah.
But I think we finally know, by the way, from this block, that history had really, really been changed when not only was Trask put in there, but he was walled up. Because in the original timeline, it was Quentin's skeleton.
Yeah.
And it was not walled up. If he had
been... Do we know that, though? Was it actually Quentin's skeleton when this first started?
Yes. And the reason
Barnabas changed the timeline, didn't he?
That's right.
I guess he did then. So it ends up in turn being Trask and not.
First of all, Beth goes to her. We find out that Beth, after she dies, she
forgives him.
She wants to say is that she's sorry, and that gives her spirit peace, so she's no longer a ghost.
Oh, she forgives Quentin,
you. And then she goes back to her grave. So here's what I now. If you remember originally when David and Amy discovered Quentin, they had to break through a little panel.
Right.
There was no brick wall.
Okay.
And then they entered into the door, and Quentin opened the door for them. And
but somebody shut him in there, though, Tom. Did they not?
So this is what probably happened, and the writers don't explain all of it. But in the original, when they were still talking about him in 1969, somebody mentioned that Quentin became a werewolf, and he was shot to death by a hunter in the woods. That was the original thing, because they didn't really know what they were going to do with the Quentin thing at this point. Then we come to and so you can only make an inference that after he was shot, nobody wanted anybody to know that how he died. So they put him in the room and put that panel in. Then Barnabas changes history, and the original kind of like two different timelines, because in the original timeline, Beth shoots Quentin dead because she's jealous.
That's right. Yep, you're right. I was
and then she
about the walling up part.
And then she kills herself. Well, because Quentin is prevented. I should say Beth is prevented from shooting Quentin.
Right.
And so now the whole timeline is changed, and rather than Quentin's ending up there in the Quentin suit, by the way, because he had the tie, he had the Quentin tie, he had the Quentin greatcoat, and in fact they did a blooper. He had a dark blue greatcoat most of the time, but one episode they had him in a gray greatcoat. I think they sent out one of them to the laundry, but now the whole thing has changed. And so that leads to, they realized that they wanted to keep Selby because of the tremendous fandom. And he really did take over some of the fandom from Jonathan, who was very, very tired having to come in.
Jonathan's time off.
Jonathan's time off. And so they wanted to keep him. So it had to be switched to how do they take care of who winds up? And the very nice idea is they wound up with Trask in the wall, and they did that wall thing deliberately to remind everybody of the 1795 Trask. where Barnabas walled up Trask. So that's the way I see it.
I find it when
I think another thing is that we've also had a change of timeline when Barnabas went back originally, when we got the Barnabas, the originating storyline. I mean, when Victoria went back, that changed everything as well. I mean, the thing is like the storyline that you were getting at the time, like Naomi's death, ended up being a year or two earlier. And we're like, oh, that's a blooper. But maybe it wasn't, because with Victoria showing up, she seemed to actually speed up what would have happened. And a lot of stuff actually changed, for a lot of people. And
what was your point?
And it actually changed for Ben Stokes, because if you remember, there was no book of Ben Stokes and what happened to Ben Stokes and stuff like this. After that storyline happens, all of a sudden now there's a book and a diary of Ben Stokes, and he became like an educated man. Before that, he was just a servant before Vicky went back in time.
Barnabas started to teach him how to write. And in fact, that was how he was able, when Angelique made him mute, and Barnabas wanted to know the witch's name in 1795. What Angelique didn't think of is he asked Ben to write the letter of the name in the sand. And what Angelique didn't realize is she could make him mute, but she couldn't take away his ability to write. He probably thought he was illiterate, but Barnabas taught him rudimentary stuff, and so he put an A there. In fact, they made a big deal out of it because.
But if you look at the simple fact, before they went back in time, there was no Ben Stokes diary. When they came back, when they went back to the present time, all of a sudden there's a Ben Stokes diary.
Yeah.
And
they didn't describe that.
Vicky went back and she changed history, didn't she? She changed the course of everything. She sped it up. She sped a lot of things up.
Yeah.
Like
and she changed other stuff.
Josette and Angelique storyline, she sped that up because what we find out, it wasn't for Victoria and Jeremiah falling for Victoria early on. But then basically Angelique had to step out and go, no, you're going for Josette. And then that's when the spell came. But Victoria wasn't there. That could have been brewing for a long time, for 6 months to a year.
And instead of Victoria, it would have been Phyllis Wicks, who was the original governess. And what would have happened had that's something that's largely unexplored. What would have happened in that original timeline if
Phyllis Wicks commits? I mean, was she hung for a witch? I mean, of course she was when Victoria came back in time, but in the original storyline, was she? I mean, she was never mentioned. They didn't know who she was.
Well, no. Phyllis Wick, when they did the seance, Phyllis.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about when they went to the seance. But I'm sitting there saying Victoria never went back in time. With Phyllis Wick, might have lived a healthy life as a
exactly.
But because Victoria went back to present day, that she ended up taking Victoria's place and then was hung as a witch.
Right.
But in the to be honest, in the history book, they wouldn't know who Phyllis Wick was anyway. She'd be Victoria Winters. She'd be the body of Victoria Winters, really.
So Vicky Winters indirectly caused Phyllis Wick's death by changing history.
Right. You know what I find so interesting is that they say when you're writing science fiction or fantasy, you have to set the rules of that world and that place and that time. And as long as you follow your own set of rules, then you're internally consistent. Like if time travel is a thing, then time travel is a thing here. But what's interesting about the Dark Shadows is that it's so versatile. It just changes the rules. I mean, it just says, okay, now we're going to switch minds, and now we're going to go back in time, and now
That's right.
Everyone's just like, okay,
okay,
that's right. Let's go to that one.
Yeah.
Well, I also have to admit that what's also quite. If you think of like the original time that they did go back to 1795, the first time, and then if you notice that when they went back into the present time, 1967, that there's some characters that were missing, and of course they probably were, because if you look at your life, if you just change one small bit in your life is going to be different than what it was now. You know what I mean? If you go back in time, so you can always, there are a lot of things where people go, that may sound like bloopers or something like that, but in a way it's true though. If you just change one small thing in time, it has a ripple effect through everything.
Yeah, like what's the name of that picture? The butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Butterfly effect. Yeah.
I love that movie, by the way.
Great movie.
We tell patients that, I tell patients that all the time in psychiatry, that, when they're talking about their past or something like this, And I go, I wish I could go back. They go, well, I always tell them, if you could go back and just change one small thing, your life wouldn't be bigger or better. It'd just be different. So, well, Barbara, what we're going to do is we're going to let you go because I believe you have an engagement because we started a little bit late.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't leave enough time. I thought we'd be done by 3, but there's a lot.
There's always lots to cover before and after.
You can see. You can see.
But it's always fun to hang out with you guys and dissect interesting stories. And I always learn stuff from you all. You always have the backstory, and you're very insightful.
Well, we learn from you too.
Such a pleasure meeting you. Such a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
And you're right in my backyard.
Yeah, maybe I'll catch you guys next time then.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Anybody wants to read my new book, I'll send.
Please let us know when you're done.
All right, great. I'll give you.
Looking forward to it. Take care now.
So much.
Bye, Miss Barbara.
See you next time. We'll see you in a couple months.
Yay!
Yay.
Okay.
So I think now this kind of brings us to Kitty's story. Now this is scene 4. Now the reason why Kitty's story is here because this is going to lead us into 1796. So that's the reason why this is moved in. And Kitty's story is kind of peppered throughout everything that we've covered so far. So what we learn about Kitty is Kitty starts to become Josette. Dressed as Josette, Kitty visits Jeremiah Collins' grave. Kitty writes a letter dating it 1796. She is entranced by the portrait of Josette at the old house. Kitty accepts Edward's marriage proposal, but later goes to Barnabas. Kitty is terrified what will happen if she becomes Josette. Kitty goes to Josette's room at the old house wearing Josette's wedding dress.
Nothing really changes kind of sort of in this one, does it? Because the end of Josette never really does get to live, does she?
The thing is that this does this will lead us into the next scene for 1796 where you briefly go back there. And when I was watching this and in reflection, we do get a payoff. Surprisingly enough.
I think though that we're really talking about the 2-day 1796 day, which I kind of thought was disappointing, but that's in the next scene. As far as this story is concerned, I will hand it to Catherine Lee Scott because she's got Josette down pat.
She does.
She really does. I mean, I still think she played Kitty Soames like Tara from Gone with the Wind, although she disagreed with me when I asked her.
Well, I don't understand. Was she British? Was she an American married to a Brit?
She's American married to a British. Okay. Yeah, she comes from Pennsylvania. Mother lives in Pennsylvania.
I forget.
And she she writes letters to the mother and stuff like that. And she married Gerald Soames, the Earl of Hampshire. And then, and that's when Petofi met them. And then there were all kinds of nonsense going on. And Gerald died penniless.
Personality anyway, I found.
What do you mean?
I mean, she's fine, but there's not much. I mean, she shows up. She shows up in the last block that we covered. Kind of like, okay, And then as her storyline goes on, the only thing interesting about her is that she's becoming Josette, and that's what's interesting about it because
that's what the fans want.
Kitty, she's not that interesting. It's kind of like
did the fans want them to resurrect Josette for another time? Is that why?
I don't know if the fans wanted it, but I think that Curtis realized that they were going to have to keep that plot in and go back to it from time to time because that plot was weird.
Don't they?
What's that?
I mean, okay, I say what we do is let's do the 1796 thing. Let's bring it all together. Because in 1796, Angelique taunts Josette on the cliff of Widow's Hill. Josette believes Barnabas has betrayed her. And then when we get the Leviathan, and then we'll get the Leviathan later. But so she commits suicide in her room. Does she drink poison?
Yes.
She drinks.
Yeah.
Right?
She drinks poison.
And then when we get back to the present day,
Maggie?
Not Naomi. What? Joan Bennett's dude.
Liz.
There we go. Sorry, I'm getting confused now. But Liz is back in the house because all the ghosts are laid to rest. So does that mean that Josette's no longer a ghost because now she didn't fall off being scared to death or anything?
But she killed herself.
She killed herself.
Find rest now.
Well, I think I think they were talking about Quentin and Beth because, especially Quentin, because those are the ones that made them leave the house and live in the old house. And when history was changed, and they had that dream sequence, I think that Jameson, I think, dreamed that Quentin had actually killed David, and he was on a crypt or an altar or something like that, and Roger is like looking down at him. All of a sudden, David opens his eyes. Oh, my son! And that's another little thing because I happened to catch the first episode for some reason. Well, what do you think we're going to do with the monster now? David is no longer a monster, which is a little monster, which is what the theme was. But anyway, that's what I think. That's what they were talking about. But we're going to see later that all is not over with Josette. All is not over,
right? Because
Josette still is a suicide.
Right.
And suicide has unfinished business. Whether you throw yourself off the cliff or you take poison.
But she didn't really. I mean, because the first Josette storyline, she doesn't. She kind of was running away, and she doesn't really like commit suicide. She kind of just falls off the cliff, doesn't she?
Yeah, I think she she got scared. I mean, she was frightened. And she saw, and Angelique kept showing her.
It wasn't a suicide.
She was running away from Barnabas.
I can throw myself off because I'm depressed.
She was running away from Barnabas. She was scared.
Yeah, and this one, this time this is an actual suicide because there is a thought process here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what we get, which this is what this is the first. We're getting to areas now where this is the first time I'm seeing anything. All the stuff up before this point, I've seen before. Now I'm getting to new territory where this is all new to me now. But what's going on from this point forward?
Okay.
And I found because I thought what would happen is that she commits suicide and then we'll go back to 1897 and we find out what happens with Kitty, which we don't. So is Edward going to marry Kitty? Is Kitty and Edward still there? Where's Quentin? Where's Quentin going to be around somewhere? Because Petofi's gone now. Is he back in England? So now we have a lot of we killed off everyone that was basically a villain. We're left with the neutral family at the moment, and now we're just kind of like. And then we go back in time because Kitty becomes Josette and through the picture, and then Kitty is somewhere inside Josette. And Barnabas is trying to work that out, and sort of thing. And then she commits suicide. So, yeah. So we have a lot more questions that were kind of answered.
Well, maybe the reason for that was because I agree with you. I think that it would have been nice to have continued and really wind up the plot in 1897. What they did was, after they went back to 1969, Julia's hearing voices from the past. And if you remember, there's a conversation in this block she hears between Magda and Pansy.
Right.
And she hears this conversation between them, and that it's apparently been 2 weeks since Kitty has disappeared, and Edward's running around looking for her, and he can't find her. And he followed Barnabas. He followed Kitty, who went into the old house, and then he saw Barnabas goes into the old house. So he's convinced now that Barnabas is trying to take Kitty away from her. But by the time he gets there, they've both gone to 1796, but they disappeared, and that's where it is. So I think there was a feeble attempt to try and wrap that up, so to speak. But
what about Charity? Does she go back to being Trust's daughter again?
No, she does not go back. No.
Okay, because with the Toffee dead, I didn't know if that might change things. Because once the Toffee dies, we don't. Any after effect that we've had with her character, we don't know because we don't see her again.
Well, we've got the painter too. That all this was because of Petofi.
Well, his character is coming back in this block.
Right.
That's right.
We'll cover the next scene.
But I will also tell you that although we don't hear from Pansy Faye again, we will, and this is much later on in the show, hear from Letitia Faye.
Yeah.
And we will tell the fans, the new fans, we'll have to wait. The old fans know who Letitia Faye is. And so we will see the I Wanna Dance With You.
Don't get me going. I forgot that song for like 3 days now. I found myself cleaning and singing that song. It's just like
dance your cares away.
Yeah, I know.
I'll be so close to you. In our arms.
I don't like the way he says, I wanna dance with you.
do the hoochie coo.
Yeah, and she's leading around the room because she's afraid if he falls asleep, then if Quentin falls asleep, then Petofi will take his mind over again. So
I love Nancy Barrett in these scenes. I love her in these scenes. She's fantastic.
She's great. She's great. In fact, the very same show, she plays Carolyn in that show, and then you hear the voiceover of Pansy, and it's the same one. And you'll see the voiceover of Magda while Julia's there, because Julia's listening to the both of them. So it's really kind of interesting to hear, this actress doing two interpretations. And by the way, Paul Stoddard, that's in here. That's in this block.
Yeah, that's in our next. We'll be discussing that when we discuss the next.
Oh, we're going to do that in our next.
Yeah, we're going to do the whole present day because we now go back into the present.
Okay, so is that going to be in our next thing?
Or no, it's in our next scene. We'll discuss.
Oh, next scene. Okay, sorry about that.
So we're still in 1796 at the moment.
Okay. Well, 1796. I got to tell you, aside from seeing Ben, and I enjoyed seeing Mr. Barnabas. Again. And,
Mr. Barnabas. I love him. I love him.
Mr. Barnabas.
Her storyline's now well, because she gets bit by Barnabas.
Got a spot in the stables for you, Mr. Barnabas. Don't say anything, Ben. No, but and it was nice to see a couple of them portray the 1790. It was, Thayer David as Ben Stokes is classic, and Catherine Lee Scott as Josette is classic. But other than that, I really kind of felt this reprise was disappointing.
They got to change Barnabas's character as well, because he's actually like, no, I don't want you to run away with me. No, that's not going to happen. He's
although he did bite Natalie.
He's in modern day Barnabas mindset now.
Right.
And I thought that was a little bit interesting. I think they could have gone a little bit further, because after this is over with, this is where I thought I'd missed an episode somewhere, because I was like, boom, it's like, what the hell happened?
Right.
Sort of thing. But yeah, I do agree that I think they gave it some more time to breathe or give it some more, because we get Barnabas talking to Josette and said that you're not really Josette, you're actually Kitty at some point. And then they don't really chase up after that, because when she's wandering around with Josette, then she decides that she's okay to become a child of the night, I guess. And
I have a question. Would Leviathan have happened had Barnabas not gone back?
Not gone back to 17. That is a good question.
I think maybe that's what spurred it on, because if you got this one character that keeps passing back and forth through times, and maybe whatever the Leviathan is going to be, maybe that kind of thing pops up on your radar when people are just going from time frame to time zone, all the time frame to time frame. Maybe
I was half expecting the Slee stack.
Well, the question basically is that the 1796 ends very well. I think the ending was exciting. I was like, whoa, this is different. I'm liking this.
Yeah.
Where they meet up with him, and then we end up in, well, we might as well do the synopsis of this now. The Leviathan capture Barnabas. They give him a lockbox and make Barnabas their master. In 1969, Collinwood, Julie and Carolyn meet Megan and Philip Todd, basically gay Philip with his beard Megan, who own an antique shop. Professor Stokes tries to restore Sabrina's memory. Julie is mystified by Barnabas' strange behavior. In a dream, Oberon, the Leviathan, tells Barnabas how to recognize the chosen one. Barnabas gives Megan the Leviathan box. A sound indicates something may have escaped from it. A mysterious stranger introduces himself as Carolyn's father, Paul Stoddard, sorry. The Leviathan child has come to stay with Philip and Megan.
Do we ever get to see this Leviathan child? Is this a takeoff of Rosemary's Baby?
Combination.
No, Rosemary's Baby hasn't come out yet. Rosemary's Baby is 1969. No, 68. 68, yeah. So
this is more Lovecraft. This is more Lovecraft.
Okay, I was just wondering if they did a little rip off here. That's all.
This is more, yeah.
So talking about Barnabas is when he meets the Leviathan in 1796. Do they zap him into 1969 Collinwood? Is that what happens on that altar? Or
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not living in life and dormant somewhere, and all of a sudden wakes up and.
Okay, but are these people are these things, aliens, Leviathans, whatever, taking over Barnabas's mind and body? Yes. Barnabas exists no more in the shell of a vampire man that he is, right?
Well,
he's somebody else.
More because he's cured now, isn't he?
Well, they're calling him master, you know?
He's not, I don't think he's a vampire, although I don't want to say, you're going to look in the other blocks. Coming up, but at this point,
I think at this time juncture, at the moment, he's not a vampire because he got cured in 1895.
He's human, but he's
back at 17.
He's human, but he's not human.
But he's possessed. He's possessed.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly these beings are to these people. I mean, they immediately get mind melded somehow.
The demons.
Because what's his name? Todd, something Todd. He played Alan Spaulding in The Guiding Light. I remember him.
Philip Todd.
Yeah.
I mean,
Christopher Burnett.
What the hell is he wearing when we first see him? He's wearing a jumper with a little belt around the waist, and he looks like one of those dancers from an Andy Williams Christmas.
That's mean.
And I was like, first of all, I was like, when he's wearing the belt around his waist, I was thinking about like, is he wearing a belt around his waist?
Well, this is the 60s. He was trendy.
Women used a belt around the waist, not men.
Maybe he was in touch with his feminine side.
Like, and he's really camp. I'm sorry, but everything's like, oh. I think
I can see there's a little bit of
I can't wait to get the Hitchcock chair. I hope Barnabas gives us the Hitchcock chair. So lovely. And his wife's going, yeah, dear.
That's funny.
Yes,
That's
dear.
Funny.
His beard. But yeah, I mean, he's really camp. I mean, when I looked him up and found out he was Alan Spaulding, I mean, I loved Guiding Light.
So did I.
I mean, Nolan and all that sort
of
stuff.
Didn't he have an affair with Vanessa? Didn't him and Vanessa used to fart around all the time?
Yeah, and he was a doctor. And, he was quite the stud on that show. I remember that.
He was like a tycoon. He was like a J.R. Ewing kind of thing.
Yeah. And I remember the storyline with Nola
and Quentin.
Yeah.
Quentin McCord.
So, but when I saw him in this, I just thought to myself, like, oh my God, this guy escaped from Boys in the Band.
That's funny. That's funny.
Was he gay?
Yeah, he was. He was.
But saying this, I have to sit there and say something happened when they go in modern day, because if you notice, everything kind of has a new look to it. It's like the color, there's like a color change going on with like
something. There's a different hue.
They're trying new things and stuff like that, and
I like it. And I love Jonathan Frid is fantastic at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
he's gotten cold and scary again, and hard.
Reminds me of the original Barnabas in a way.
Yeah. He's back.
Yeah, he's back.
And another thing I like about him as well, there's this odd, creepy ass, freaky as hell charm about him. So you're kind of like freaked out by him, but you're fine. He's very charming as well, and to be able to pull that off.
He's always been charming.
there is like a sappiness to him. I always thought, when you first see Barnabas, it's like, they didn't know what to do with him, sort of thing. Then you go to 70-95, and then we kind of got. Then we got sappy Barnabas, and
you got
Barnabas
sympathetic
and all the other stuff. And
this is not
sympathetic Barnabas.
This is not a sympathetic vampire or a sympathetic person either. He's probably sympathetic human. Do you see the way he rejected Julia? He almost told her to get the hell out of his life, and she was hurt and she couldn't understand it. And then he thought again and he figured, well, maybe I can use her, the way he's always used her. So he slithers.
We got Barnabas, who's like solving the mysteries of the Collins family. We got a lot of different Barnabas. But in this presentation we got something that we've actually never seen as far as Jonathan Frid is concerned.
Right.
And that's what I love about him. I love about, this. I mean, I don't, we're in the beginning stages, so I said before, this is all new to me, so I don't know how this is going to pan out.
We're going to,
the moment it's like, I'm liking this.
In the meantime, he also rejects Chris Jennings. So did you help him?
Yeah, he doesn't want to help him. He's asking for help.
I'm afraid we haven't found anything.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? After all this time,
after all this, you can't help me.
You can't help me. I mean, what is good? And that's where, of course, and then the frustration between Chris and Carolyn. But I do want to mention Paul Stoddard now coming into the scene, who is played by none other than Dennis Patrick, who played during the first year, Jason McGuire.
I have to say that I had to take him because he looked different.
I know. I didn't recognize him at first, and I go, "Oh, it's Jason McGuire."
Well, if you look very closely, and I caught another blooper, the first time they have him, and they don't give him a credit, but he's in the shadows, and he's
right.
You see him with the shoes and everything, and then you see him walking around the old house, and then like near the end of the episode, at one point the camera, although everything is dark, you can look at his face. He was not wearing a mustache in that episode, and
no, he wasn't.
You caught it. Good for you, Vic. Good.
That's why I didn't recognize him when he was talking to Maggie. I go, who is that? Because the other guy didn't have a mustache.
Good for you. Good for you.
Well, when he first appeared, I thought he was part of the Leviathan storyline.
Turns out he isn't, and we'll have to see what happens with that. But and it's interesting.
I thought it was weird that David thought that Carolyn might be stooping here. It's like, it's like
there's some incest.
That old man, my boyfriend. Come on.
There's that hint of incest again, but it's interesting that the same actor who in the first year is Jason McGuire dug the pit and pretended to bury Paul Stoddard and then send him on his way. Now the actor is playing Paul Stoddard.
Yeah.
So
it was a totally different take on what really happened that night.
And
with the trunk and the robbery
he gives us another version of the story as well.
That's right. Yeah, that McGuire
it does tie in a little bit with Elizabeth's story, but it doesn't tie
a little bit.
McGuire told him that Elizabeth was trying to rob from him, and so it made McGuire out to be a real somebody's playing both sides of the fence, But this Paul,
telling the truth.
Well, who knows? But this Paul Stoddard is a much more sympathetic,
Genteel.
And he's really trying to reach out to the lost daughter.
Yeah.
Whereas the original Paul Stoddard couldn't have cared less.
Quick question: Maggie, you never really saw what he asked Maggie to do. When he was,
introduced him to Carolyn.
Yeah, about Carolyn. Mm-hmm. But Maggie seemed a little
basically
loopy.
Get her to the Blue Whale because I want to meet her. That's pretty much. I think that's what.
Yeah, I know. But didn't Maggie seem a little loopy? It wasn't like Maggie to do something like that, though, was it?
Yeah, but there seemed to be a connection between Paul and her father, Sam.
Right, they were friends, and this is and when. when he mentions that, then it's all, then Maggie warms up to him. And I guess but it did seem a little strange for Maggie to almost take a Burke Devlin kind of stance, kind of whale, like, come on, we're out for the night. Let's drink. We're out for the night. That's very unlike Maggie. That's very unlike Maggie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was just weird. And I was wondering, did somebody do the, Vulcan mind meld on her already?
I think she's sick and tired of being governess to the kids. I think she wants to have some fun.
I don't blame her. I would be day drinking if I had to take care of David.
The time thing's a bit weird as well, we find out, because
he
tells Paul that Sam's been dead for about 6 months.
Who's this?
Maggie tells Paul's daughter.
She said that he was dead for 6 months. I missed that.
Yeah, something.
That is definitely.
I was like,
excuse me.
Really? I mean, it's possible. You've had a lot of going back in time and all this other stuff that's been going on. So
I'm glad you told me. I got to look that up. There'll be another book.
Yeah, it's like it's like when he first appears to Maggie. He says it's something like 6 months, or maybe it was a year or something like that. But Sam's been gone for a couple of years, hasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he died. He died before they went to. He died before they went to 1897. So he died in 68. And where are we now? Are we 69?
But then again, I mean, it could be possible because again, we had time travel again. So
history might have been changed.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think that maybe this changed everything?
Rather than the writers goofed, which probably did happen, you could always say.
I mean, if I go back in time and I decided I want to spend 5 years and I want to live in 1890 to 1900s, and then when I decided to come back here, I decided I'm going to come back here on the 26th of February, 2022. You can do that, and so only a day is going to pass here. We're basically you lived 5 years in the past, I guess. So it is possible.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we do have her as a governess because we have the Eve storyline that happened and the other stuff that happened in the present time. So that's where we get a bit fuzzy.
The question is she still the governess though? Because she's moving back now to her old house.
No, she's renting it out. I thought she's living at Collinwood.
I thought she was. Oh, she's renting it out.
She's cleaning it out because she's waiting for another renter to come in. I think.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. I got you.
She's renting it because she said that when she leaves, that David and Amy, obviously Amy's still there. We haven't seen her. But,
yes, Amy and Chris are still
there.
They're doing their homework and then they'll go to their bed and then.
Mm-hmm.
And David's still at 2. Doesn't matter what century you're in. Well, it's like David did not miss a step at being a wise ass at all.
David's reaching mature. David's going through puberty, so
definitely. Definitely.
Watch out. Might ask Maggie to join her.
Like the face and everything start changing, and he's starting to sprout as well.
Starting to fill in.
Might ask Maggie to join them in the closet or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to say, Marie Wellis as Megan. Mm-hmm. I didn't recognize her as Marie Wellis.
I didn't either. I was looking for the sexy lingerie lady, And
then you come up with June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver.
It's June Cleaver.
Yeah, absolutely. And
where did the baby come from? Does that what escaped from the box?
Immaculate Conception.
Huh?
The opposite of Immaculate Conception, apparently. But
The box is Pandora's box, isn't it, sort of thing?
In a way. But what I couldn't understand is, that book that they took out of the box?
Right.
That book looks too big for that box.
It is.
How the hell did David smuggle it out of the shop?
I know. I didn't even see him steal it.
I didn't see that either. That was cool. Well, David at this point is such a pro that even the cameraman can't see him taking it out.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's funny. Yep.
And then I have to. It's kind of weird because there's this tail end. I mean, I'm loving it, and I don't have any criticism, but these are just kind of weird things I kind of notice that normally, like in the beginning of a storyline, they're quite late, but there are some little inconsistencies here. Like Carolyn says that she just met these two people. She goes there with Julia.
Right.
Next thing you know, okay, I'll come and help you the next day. So she goes and helps them the next day. They act a bit weird. And then she sits there, and then Carolyn says something really weird about that this is her new full-time job. No, this is her full-time job. She's been there a while. And like,
yeah.
I'm like, about that. I thought I had to.
I got kind of lost there.
Like, what?
I think it was part-time.
Been in a day.
I think she was working part-time at first because then, of course, once the Leviathans take them over, Philip Todd says, we're going to need you now every day.
Did Dan Curtis use storyboards for his show? Did he use storyboards or anything for continuity?
They did use storyboards for it.
Or is he just making this shit up as he's going along?
Oh, no. The writers had meetings.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I mean, but I'm just saying, I don't think they had a Bible.
I don't think they had a Bible.
Okay.
No, not at that point. Not at that point. They did originally.
Nowadays, what you do is you have a series and you have a Bible, and everything goes in this Bible. And the Bible's divided. I mean, it's easier in computer now than it was in those days anyway. But
back then,
you have each character, you have each character story arc, and then you have everyone that character's been involved with. And then meanwhile, then you'd also have like storylines of each character and what's happening with each one. And that's what you do with a Bible.
Right.
But when we asked Kathleen Lee Scott that, or I think it was Kathleen or someone from there, and they said no, they didn't have a Bible at that time. They didn't need Bibles. They kind of just. And the thing is you got to remember there's a team of writers, but those team of writers are not the same team of writers.
No, that's true. Yeah. Violet Wells continues to do a good job. Violet Wells was in the first year, and they brought her back with the Quentin thing. And she apparently is still writing into this particular area. What I thought was interesting is that Robert Costello, who produced the show all this time, is now, for some reason, replaced by Peter Miner. And I have no idea who Peter Miner is. And so I don't know what happened with that, but that's just a kind of a footnote at this point.
Well, we also find out about Charles Delaware Tate that he lived, and
he's like 100,000 years old now.
Whether he's still alive,
nearly 100. Oh, I did want to bring up something, and it's going back to 1796. Was it, or was 1897? 1897 when what's her name? When Catherine Lee Scott's character, with Kitty Sims, goes into Josette's room, you see for a couple of days the artist Compton, and then the year 1797 is under the portrait. Is in the lower right hand side of the portrait, which she used to kind of make the connection, which Kitty used to kind of make the connection between 1897 and 1797, which is also ridiculous because it was 1795. But for 2 days, you've got Compton's picture there, and then all of a sudden it disappears. There's no more signature. So I think so that's that's another goodie. I'm sorry I didn't mention that before.
I have to sit there and say that I like that Charles Delaware State tie back, and I like that all his earlier stuff is missing because of the fire. I like that. It's like, oh, this is good. So,
I don't remember any of that, so this is like through fresh eyes. So I'm kind of excited.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually getting really excited about this as well. I mean, let's see where it goes. I'm optimistic, but I have to there say that, I was really enjoying. I was like, oh, this. I've heard so much about the Leviathan storyline anyway, and I said before we've only seen 4 episodes of it. So
a lot of fans didn't like the Leviathan because you don't have a sympathetic Barnabas anymore.
No, he's cold,
and they didn't like that. They missed what was going on there, and you will also see, and I guess I can in subsequent blocks they tinge Jonathan's hair with gray.
They did?
Yeah, they will. They will. Not now.
I was going to say, I didn't notice that yet.
No, it's not yet. They will. I know, like, look at them like, that can't be him. It was like they were trying to change his persona, and give him such an evil look. And
I just want to know who painted that portrait of Quentin.
Oh, it's Charles Delaware Tate.
No, I mean, an actual life.
Real artist.
It's like,
They
that
made it
doesn't
look like
look
a hidden
nothing like
goldfish.
it. He's got these big eyes like dollar signs.
Who really did? Oh, I don't know. That's funny. Could ask David Selby that. That would
I
be,
know there's so many things in retrospect.
I actually thought the picture of it wasn't great either. It's like, okay, Charles Delaware's face must be brilliant.
I just like the name though, Charles Delaware Tate. It sounds like an artist, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Although Tate is German for death.
But if Petofi died, didn't that mean that he lost his magic to art?
Apparently he didn't, and that's an interesting thing. Maybe in a case like that, it sticks with you. If the person who had the hand died, and maybe that's why Pansy is still Pansy. That's
what happened to Magda. Are we going to have some closure on Magda?
No, except for that conversation you heard.
Or no, she was a ghost that showed up prior.
Magda disappeared off the face of the earth anyway. Once after Julia shows up at that one time, and then you had the one.
I was just wondering if they tied up a loose end I might have missed. That's all.
No, they did. Like I said, they did have that conversation between Magda and Pansy that Julia heard. But other than that, I think that's it.
Well, there's a lot of loose ends. I mean, the thing is that Barnabas from England, not because they think now he's actually from England, and they Edward, no one's been able to wrap their head around that storyline.
Right.
So Barnabas has now disappeared. So as far as Edward and everyone living that storyline, I mean, they're going to be really confused because all these people just disappeared overnight.
Everybody's gone.
Jameson and Nora.
I don't know when Josette takes the poison, does Kitty bounce back and loses all memory? We don't know anything about.
Trask is starving to death in the dark.
And then he shoots.
I don't think anything's going to change there. I mean, he's just going to die slowly. Well, he'll die in the dark because he keeps.
No, he shot himself because Liz.
He only has a certain number of candles, so that's not going to. He's going to have life for very too much longer.
Judith called him up on the phone and told him to look into the desk drawer, and then there's something that's a nice surprise for him. Yeah. And he found the nice surprise. It was a gun, and then
that's right. He shot himself. I was kind of hoping he was going to starve.
No, he shot himself.
Much more painful.
Took the coward's way out.
Oh, I think the best bit of that whole thing, and I was like Ruth, go, yeah, go, you go, girl. When she calls him up on the phone, she goes, "Oh, I left something bright and cheery for you."
Yeah, she didn't leave enough candles. Amanda, he so had that coming, though. I mean, it's just like, yeah, go Judith. I mean, I was so happy that she finally grew a nutsack and did something with him. And with everybody else that was trying to like bull her over for money and everything else.
I really like when he heard some kind of when he was first locked in, and he heard this knocking, and I guess they were building up the wall. And he said, "Judith, is that you? Are you repenting your sin?"
Yeah. Oh my God, what a hypocrite! What a lustful, dirty old man. That's all he was.
Just like his great-great-grandfather.
God. I'm just trying to figure out what women were interested in him. He didn't have nothing to offer.
Who, Trask?
Yes.
Well, it's propriety, isn't it? Some women, it's a bit like some women fall in love with like the minister or the priest, and they're never that good looking.
Yeah,
because it's the piety, it's the holier than thou. It's this, he's going to save me from whatever thing you think you're going through.
Right. He preyed on them.
Yeah, it's savior complex that some women get for men. Oh, this man's going to save me. So like saving yourself, sort of thing.
I have no idea why the hell he ever married Minerva. God, I mean,
she was probably a very pretty woman back in the day.
I think Minerva
probably a long day.
Minerva is that sanctimonious woman that if you're a preacher, it's fantastic to have at your side because that kind of whatever spiel that's coming out of your mouth, she's kind of proving that you can be just like this person here, and you kind of need that. You don't want to be. I mean, because let's be honest, if you're heading a church, you don't want to be married to a beauty queen now, do you?
To a what?
They never are because it paints the wrong image, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You always
that's why they get caught with everybody, like Brother Swaggart. I have seen.
They always have to kind of look like a librarian, don't they? Preacher's wives always look like a librarian for some reason.
But he wanted her bumped off, so she must have really gotten on his nerves sooner or later. Oh, I think she found out about his womanizing. That's why.
And also, he found a better money opportunity as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
You can either go out with the church mouse or go out with the city mouse, and the city mouse is going to more money than the church mouse.
That's funny.
So much going on, and there's just so much going on, so much change, so many endings and new beginnings. Lots going on in this end of this block.
We'll have a lot to go. We'll have a lot more to go.
Thank God.
Let's talk about our best storyline and our worst storyline. Start with you, Tom. Your favorite storyline in this section and your worst storyline?
I would. Just looking at this, it's kind of, because I know the 1796 was. I'm going to say this 1796 was the worst storyline. I can tell you that right now.
It wasn't very conclusive, was it?
It was just 2 weeks, 2 days. They didn't really do that much.
It was too quick.
Yeah.
It was way too quick. I know they didn't have enough time. They were on but
okay, yeah.
It was too quick.
And I do think that Petofi's story would probably be because of the switch of the minds, and basically because of the superb way Selby handled that.
Right.
I think that he kind of elevated. It was an okay plot, but he elevated it. He elevated it to a point of sinister. You love to hate him. And you were really afraid. And that episode where he actually saw the present day Collinwood when he went through I Ching himself, just for a minute,
brief minute, yeah,
just for a brief minute, and you see Maggie walking down the stairs, and to find out who it was. And
Quentin's in the drawing room, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Quentin was he in the drawing room or in the cellar? I'm trying to remember.
I think he was in the drawing room. He had like a turtleneck on. I remember.
Oh, you're talking about. Oh, wait a minute. You talking about when somebody
returned? Came back into time? They knew that Quentin was there. Was that when Quentin went forward for a brief time?
No, there was another. One of them went into the future and saw Quentin with sideburns because they didn't know what to do with him yet. They put sideburns in a tie that was too long with a gun in his hand. And I forget.
Yeah.
That might have been Charles, I think. That might have been Charles.
Okay. I can't remember now.
Yeah. But the one I'm talking about in this block where he goes and he's dressed as Quentin and, and he sees everything. And then something pulls him back. I think somebody discovered him and threw the wands on the floor or something like that.
Right.
Pissed. But the way that was, I remember watching that as a kid, and I was like, when I saw him, I never, for some reason I said, I never thought he was going to make it to the present. And here he is looking at Collinwood as Petofi. And in that moment, you get a sense of, oh my God, if he stays that way, Collinwood will be no more. But he was whisked back. So I think that Petofi's story is, and the Garth Blackwood. Oh my God. I did enjoy, John Harkins as Garth Blackwood.
I enjoyed that myself.
And he was a great villain, even with his tufted eyebrows and everything. And,
he just wouldn't go away.
He refused to go away. They shot him. They shot him, and and they tied his hands up, and then he just got up and started going right at it again.
Yeah.
Charles Elwood Tate shot him in the back. And he goes to show you what a brave guy he is. But then he gets up and starts going right after. So I really do think that those two things, the Garth Blackwood thing and in Quentin, I think this elevated it, and that's my favorite scene. Keith?
And what about yourself, Vix?
Favorite storyline?
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say, God, there's so many storylines to pick from. I liked the part where Angelique and oh my God, I'm having a blank. Oh God, Grayson Hall. When she's not Magda, but she's Julia. Oh my God. Thank you for helping me speak. I loved that interaction with them for however long that lasted, because I was not expecting that. I did not remember that. And I just loved watching those two get together. I just thought it was fantastic. And you didn't know what they were up to because they going in that other room, but apparently we're trying to make sure Barnabas could deal with sunlight. I think that's what they were doing. I don't know where she got those drugs from in 1897, but she did.
The drugstore. She called the pharmacy, Compton's Pharmacy.
To turn a vampire and let him enjoy the day.
Julia had started to give to cure him.
Right.
And she was there. So she must have given, except for one last injection.
Right.
And it's implied that she told Angelique what to do.
Right.
So that's why she got those. Pharmaceuticals.
I was just really pleased to see the two of them interact together, other than arch enemies.
But what you're talking about with the sunlight was where Quentin as Petofi and Edward had Barnabas in the doctor's office.
Right.
And they wanted, and of course Quentin wanted to shoot him right away, and the doctor said, "You can't do that in my office." So Edward says, "It's all right. The sun will be."
But that was Petofi technically at that time.
No. This was Barnabas. This is Barnabas.
Yeah, when they found Barnabas. But Quentin wasn't Quentin at that time, though. That's right. Why he wanted to kill Barnabas.
That's right. And he wanted to kill him with a gun. And Edward said no, because Dawn is coming up and we can see him die
that way. Yeah.
And then Dawn happens and he's still there. And Barnabas says, "Thank God."
Yeah.
Saved by the bell. That was great, actually, because as a viewer, you didn't know what the hell was going on there. It was like, what, is Barnabas come back, or is he in another?
That's what was so brilliant about that.
Yeah, it was confusing a little bit.
All the fans could not figure that out. How is it possible that he can be in two places at once? And
then when they explain themselves, it makes sense that in this world it wasn't something
quantum theory.
Like something threw out at you. It's like, oh, well, that's quite cool, actually. I like that.
By the way, Angelique used the doppelganger thing once before in the previous block when she was in the old house and somebody tried to set her on fire or something.
That's right. That's right.
That was a doppelganger. So they took that and they just transferred it over to, and everybody forgot about it because it was only done like in a couple of scenes. So it was really brilliant. They were able to pull it off.
I just liked watching them get together. The tough women getting together to save the day.
There you go.
What was your worst then?
My worst. I'm going to have to agree with Tom about that last little 1796, 1797 thing. It lasted like an episode or two. And
two episodes. It's horrible.
It didn't. I thought it was too abrupt, I guess. I don't know. I was kind of I was getting a little hopeful again that Josette might not die and she might live to have a fulfilling life, because everything happened to her. She was a victim of circumstance, but it didn't. She ended up killing herself. So
you're going to see something much later on,
right?
Regarding what if she had lived, and that's all I'm going to say.
You always say that. That's all
my favorite storyline is Judith coming back from the sanitarium, making friends with Charity, putting out that photo of Amanda.
What's that?
I said, becoming friends with Pansy.
Oh,
and then having Pansy bring out the painting, and then then getting together with Tim and let's wall him up behind the wall sort of thing, and then the phone call she's having with him. That
is funny. That really is great.
I was just like, it caught me totally by surprise. It's happening, and I'm going, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. Like
good
that.
for Judith.
So coming. He so had that Judith. Coming.
And you could tell that Joan Bennett was having a whale of it. She was.
Yeah.
And
they gave her so much control, and she had Evan change the will.
Yeah,
and that was so Trask was going down to shoot at that point.
And she's no longer the doormat that she was for so many months. So it was fantastic.
Well, she figured out he wasn't coming to. She telling everybody he was going to see her, and he wasn't doing jack. He was going out to see other women, and he was lying about Jude.
I'm just saying he had such great treatment at Rushmore.
I know. She's still so withdrawn. Because we have to pray for her. Also got to pray.
Yeah.
And you got Pansy Faye flitting around like a,
Oh, he hated that.
Like Tinkerbell getting in his face.
You're nothing but an old crow. I thought that was funny.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my worst storyline, I think it just has to be.
There's so
it's
many.
Kind of rough because it's Quentin as it's Petofi, the body of Petofi, Quentin inside, because we got a lot of the other way around with Petofi side of Quentin. We got a lot of scenes about that. So I would have liked it if we had a little bit more of the other way around as well, because that way we had sympathy for Quentin being stuck in Petofi's body.
Right.
And who wouldn't? You're stuck in a Mrs. Beasley doll, so with thick glasses on, so everyone's going to bully you and make fun of you. But at the same time, I kind of wish we had more scenes of that, because I think if we had more scenes, I would have given David Thayer a lot more to play around with, and we don't get a lot for him to play around with. And so you feel sorry for him, but I just think they could have milked that a lot more, personally, because they give you that feeling about what happened if this happened to you, sort of
right.
So, and because if we had more of that, I think it would have paid. Because I love David Selby doing the opposite, and that was fantastic. And I know that Dave Ayer, I think if he was given more in the opposite way, I think he would have been able to do more with it. But I don't think he only had like a couple scenes here and there, and it kind of like, okay.
He kind of made you feel sorry for him, though, really quick, because he was an old man with those big bottle cap glasses. And I felt sorry for him sometimes, even though he was so awful.
He kept
losing the bullies, Aristede took the glasses off and, treating him like a bully,
Yeah, and I just think that I just think that they could have done better with that storyline. I think what should have happened is that every time you saw that, your heart should break every time you saw him stuck in Sophie's body. No one understanding him, no one everything. And we did get a little bit of that, but I think they could have milked it more. It's just
maybe so.
For me personally, I just thought, because it's kind of a sad, pathetic thing, horrible thing to happen to you, and it'd be soul destroying. And I just kind of wanted more of the soul destroying to come out, sort of thing.
I would have liked more backstory on him. Yeah.
Well, because especially by the time that this happens to Quentin, Quentin has turned a new leaf as well, and he's become a different person.
He will be.
It's like he's become kinder. He's become friends with Barnabas. He's looking to help. He's looking to help the werewolf inside himself. At the same time, he's looking to help other people. And,
right.
And and he's he's in love with Beth now. Beth's no longer the doormat that she was for him. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on there with his character before this happened to him, and he kind of, I think they could have kept that the old Quentin in there, and had that way you'd have this huge contrast between Quentin stuck in Petofi, and then the Petofi being in Quentin's body and Quentin acting that way. And that's another thing I had problems with, that no one seemed to notice that Quentin's personality changed.
Right.
It had changed before that happened, so that's why. But I did like the idea of it. So let's go to favorite character and least favorite character of this block. So, Vicky, what's your favorite character and your least favorite character?
I have a lot of favorite characters in this block. I really enjoyed David Selby's performance and Nancy Barrett's performance. I love her as Pansy Faye. I don't know what kind of accent. I'm told it's Cockney. But I mean, that song has been stuck in my head ever since those episodes started. I find myself, I'm doing housework and I'm singing that song. I want to dance with you. Dance your cares away. But I mean, she just lit it up doing that. She was fantastic. And I mean, she has a range, that you could finally see in some of these episodes. And I just love her in these. I love Joan Bennett in these. I love David Selby. I mean, these are just all strong, I mean, they are David. You can't go wrong. But we have Aristede. I just can't get over the hump of not liking Aristede. I don't know why. Sometimes he's a useful character, but then sometimes it's like, what is he here for? What is he doing? And he's such a suck ass most of the time. Please help me. After he brutalizes somebody and then he's asking for mercy, please don't let him kill me. It's like, fuck you. It's like, come on,
I have to agree with that character. Actually, I had so much hope and I loved him at the beginning, and then it kind of just.
I know. It's just like I don't know if they dropped the ball. I don't know what. I mean, we're going to give him a chance. He's coming back. So we'll see what happens, in future episodes. But
no, my least favorite character has the Aristede, because I said before, I loved him in the beginning. It's like, oh, this is quite good. I'm quite liking him.
Yes,
and then
but he mellowed out.
By the time that Scottish ghost is chasing around trying to kill him, and meanwhile he's leading it to everyone so they can get killed in the wake. So it's like, okay,
yeah.
Good. But yeah, I just thought to myself, like, I was like, oh, you can go already. It's kind of like that, and it's a shame because I really liked that character to begin with. And it kind of just like, by the time it's time to go, I was like, okay, go. It was like, oh, and almost like when he did show up, I was like, oh, you still here? It kind of was like that. My pop is like, what? You still alive? You still around?
Exactly.
Like that person that you thought died, and they keep knocking on your door looking for sugar, and that neighbor died years ago. You're like, what? I thought you died. What are you talking for?
But he was so mean, and then he'd ask for mercy after all the horrible things he would do at the behest of Petofi.
And my favorite, I'm going to go with Nancy Barrett. And we got Nancy Barrett as Maleficent in this block. We got Nancy Barrett as Pansy in this block. We got Nancy Barrett as Carolyn in this block.
She's fantastic, this whole block.
And Millicent, too, in the 1795 block.
She was fantastic. And
we did Millicent, we did Carolyn, we did Charity, we did Pansy Faye. Did we leave anybody out?
Yeah, we saw every single one of her characters in this block. And the thing is, it makes you realize how underappreciated she is.
Yes.
Because everyone goes on. I mean, I love you, Catherine, but everyone goes on about Catherine Lee Scott, and they go on about Alexander Moki all the time, and they go on about Laura Parker all the time, and
you're right. You're right.
Hardly mentioned at all, and she's a powerhouse.
She is.
She was a character.
She's so petite too.
She was so. Her range was really
kind of
like Thayer David's range, but she was able to play a character actress as well as she was able to play Carolyn, who was essentially
exactly.
And so she really broke the stereotype, because you're either the character actor like Thayer David was, you could never see him in the role of a normal guy, or you're the Cary Grant, that kind of. But she's able to do both, and that I think is unique.
I mean, even her English accent isn't bad. Even
the Cockney accent.
Bad.
Yeah, my English friends said they were like, "Oh, that's really good." You know what I mean? I mean,
hey, love, hey, governor.
Hey, but I mean, I'd sit there and say that, I mean, the only thing I had against her is that when we went back to 1969, I think the eyeliner all the way around the eye was a bit too much.
Oh, come on, Keith.
That was 1969.
Come on, Keith, for Christ's sake. She was a great actress.
It looked like she had Charlie Brown eyes. It was like.
I love her makeup. I was actually watching it like frame by frame to see if I could replicate her eyeliner. I love her eyeliner. How hard it is to have perfect eyeliner.
The eyeliner around the eye, because basically it's turning her eyes into these great big tubes.
The bat wings are in.
She was wearing false eyelashes, wasn't she? Was she wearing false eyelashes?
It's not the eyelashes. It's not the eyeshadow. If you look at her eye makeup again, she's taken an eyebrow pencil and went all the way around her eye. So basically her eyes are two O's, like Lucy Van Pelt from Charlie Brown, like those eyes, sort of thing. But that has nothing to do with her
style.
acting. I'm just sitting there going, that's the only negative thing I can say is like, oh,
He's nitpicking, Tom.
Yeah,
Keith is nitpicking.
I'm
I do
nitpicking
have
about
to
her
admit
eye
that.
makeup.
I love you, Nancy. I love your makeup.
But it was a lot better.
I
But
do
it was
have to
better
agree.
than Aristide's makeup. I'll just get.
Anything's better than Aristide's makeup.
Oh, God.
And the only thing I guess for most honorable mention as one of the worst is Philip Todd's wardrobe. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
I'm gonna go back. Is that the first episode? Because I didn't notice his word. If I did,
he looks like a backing dancer for Liza Minnelli in 1969.
From Cabaret.
I guess I just don't notice that stuff because I don't pay attention.
It's the purple belt on the jumper and the thing is it's not at his waist. It's around it's up here. It's up around that's underneath his chest. And it's like that's what women used to wear around their things.
Right.
He's like, okay. And he spends a lot of time with his hands on his hips. So it's like, oh yeah, here we go. Girlfriend, Let me take your hair out. Turn around, Carolyn. Let's give me a thrill, girl. So Tom, who's your worst and who's your favorite character of this block?
I'm going to say the worst one I really thought was Philip Todd. I will agree with you, Keith, but I think he was, he just kind of like even Marie Wallace, who at first kind of was this father knows best. Well, once she gets possessed, she starts to change, and the evil comes out in her, and he basically says, "Yes, I agree with you. We're going to do that kind of thing." So he was a bit of a wuss, and he continues to be a wuss, and we're going to see more of that in later blocks. I think in terms of the best. I am going to give it to David Selby. I love the way he did.
He was excellent.
I love the way he did the mind switch. I love the way he commanded the scene. And there was a great sigh of. I think they were very brilliant on the show when the minds were finally swapped to their original places. And Petofi as Quentin was in the woods, and he fell onto the grass, and they both screamed like crazy. And then you heard Quentin's theme, and and that was a wonderful way to say to the fans, "He's back." That was a wonderful, and everybody could breathe a sigh of relief. Quentin's back. That bastard, bastard Petofi didn't get what he wanted. He's back. Aristede, my boy, they are going to pay for what they've done. Yeah. Anyway, definitely Selby is my choice for best.
As far as Philip and Megan are concerned, Philip and Megan Todd, it kind of reminds me of a Sophie Tucker joke. And we'll change it to Megan and Philip, where Megan's in bed with Philip, and Philip says to her, "Megan, you have no tits in a tight box." And Megan says to Philip, "Get off my back."
Yeah.
Someone was leaving it back. I wonder if Megan knows that her husband's gay. I guess we'll have to stay tuned for our next episodes, because we'll be covering episodes from December 1969 to January 1970. Those episodes, of course, if you want the exact number of episodes, they will be on our website, and of course that will be in our newsletter. We'll be a bit more thorough as far as our
hopefully we'll know by then.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me because I was a bit ill-equipped about putting everything together today due to other circumstances. So remember, next month, Dark Shadows will be episodes from December 1969 and January 1970. And of course, our next episode for our Book to Screen, part of our Kings of Horrors, will be Let the Right One In by John Javid Lindqvist, and the Swedish film called Let the Right One In. Our remake will be The Shining from 1979, Kubrick, and we'll be covering the miniseries directed by Mick Garris, who's up against us for a Rondo Award.
Yeah.
His version of The Shining, which is actually written by Stephen King, which he actually preferred because it deals more with the Stephen King book, and Stephen King didn't like the Kubrick version, so that'll be an interesting discussion. And of course, our 80s will be the German film Necromantic from 1988 and Basket Case from 1986. So,
it will be porn day on the podcast.
Good night, Vicky.
Good night.
Good night, Tom.
Good night, Keith and Vicky, and good night, everybody.
Good night, Tom.
Stay safe.
And of course, go to our website before we go at www.llpodcast.com to make sure you put in your vote for the Rondo Award. And it'll be a quick, easy way, and we'll have that up in the next week or two. And of course, we've done it for our newsletter, and there'll be a link for you there as well. So
Please remember us.
And we'll see you next time. Good night, folks.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.